Chapter 1711. From afar, it formed a petrifying scene. The number one paragon of the Xian people seemed very weak. Under Su Yan's divine might, he was like a grain of rice. He couldn't be compared to Su Yan. Even if Su Yan has stepped into the realm of a golden immortal, there's no reason for him to be so strong, right? What kind of fortune did he come into contact with? He's so ridiculously and terrifyingly strong. Is the supreme stage still far away from him? Some of the experts on the top 100 list who remained neutral were trembling in fear. They didn't dare to look directly at Su Yan, who had a vast divine might. Even when he came out of seclusion, the sound of blood flowing in his body carried a terrifying heavenly might. It filled the entire battlefield and intimidated all living beings in the universe. Su Yan's heart pounded, and the vitality that burst out was like the explosion of a heavenly drum. It shook the bodies of the kings so much that they were about to explode. How terrifying! Su Yan is already invincible. The kings were terrified. Suddenly, they understood that they and Su Yan were no longer in the same realm. Su Yan had already stepped into the realm of a golden immortal. This was a terrifying realm, an invincible realm in the golden immortal realm. However, this golden immortal of the great all-embracing heaven was too strong. He was like the legendary chaotic golden immortal, immortal and indestructible, suppressing the starry sky of the universe. His terrifying power had replaced the space-time of the ultimate treasure trove and was about to evolve his dominating domain world. Then what kind of height was Su Yan at that allowed him to stand in this domain? Have I lost? The number one paragon of the Xian people was filled with indignation and anger. If it weren't for the black fog, he believed that Su Yan wouldn't be so powerful. Absolutely not. I won't lose, I won't. The number one paragon of the Xian people roared. His blood-stained hair danced, and killing intent surged in his eyes. Kill! He directly waved his hand and hit Su Yan. He didn't believe that Su Yan had the combat strength of a peak golden immortal just after breaking through. This palm strike was very powerful. It carried the light of many divine abilities and surged over in an overwhelming manner. However, this palm strike was separated from Su Yan by a universe of space-time, very far away, very difficult to touch. It was as if they were separated by the abyss of the great Tao, and also as if they were separated by two worlds. Su Yan's figure became more and more majestic. It was truly unreachable, and one could only look at his back. The gap was really too frightening. No! The number one supreme of the Xian people roared. His eyes were about to pop out of their sockets. He was already a perfected golden immortal and could look down on the world with disdain. After all, he had two prime scriptures. But now, the disparity between him and Su Yan was too great. The disparity in cultivation was too shocking. This was so close, yet worlds apart. This was also the most perfect description of one's grasp of the Grand Tao. At this moment, even the number one supreme being of the Xian people began to suspect that Su Yan had comprehended the path of a supreme being. How could this be? He had also just broken through, so how could his gains be so great? Bang! Su Yan directly swung his fist, and a terrifying force swept down. It was difficult to resist, and it was as if the entire universe had come crashing down. It directly shattered the entire arm of the Xian people's number one paragon. Even his body was pressed to the ground, and the sound of bones cracking could be heard. The number one supreme being of the Xian people spat out a mouthful of blood, and his body was rotten. The onlookers in the distance were really frightened. They all gasped, and their hearts couldn't take it. They were both perfected golden immortals, but why was the disparity so great? No one even caught the trace of Su Yan's power. They only saw that the number one supreme being of the Xian people had just attacked, and Su Yan had already raised his fist and shattered his entire arm. What kind of Tao is this? The sacred lady, who had a born Taoism aptitude, was in disbelief. Even with her cultivation, she couldn't see through Su Yan at all. Or rather, Su Yan was like an eternal abyss of the Grand Tao and existed under the terrifying pressure of time. The number one supreme being of the Sien people is going to be defeated. The outside world was in an uproar, and the world was shocked. There was no suspense. The disparity between the two was too great. The Sien people fell silent, and the entire immortal continent was extremely depressed. He had lost, and he had lost too miserably. He might as well have ended his life in the golden immortal realm. From the current level of battle, the number one supreme being of the Sien people couldn't even be considered a foil. Sien Tyran and the others were about to go crazy. What level had Su Yin reached? Sien Tyran also found it ridiculous. It hadn't even been 100 years. Back then, he could look down on Su Yin and treat him like an ant. But now, Su Yin looked down on him and treated him like an ant. Primogenitor, why is this? The entire sword sect was also in an uproar. Why was the disparity between them so great? An old antique whispered, "The number one supreme being of the Sien people has two mother sutras. After all, his Taoist technique must be extremely powerful. Why did he fall to such a state when he fought with Su Yin? Although the mother sutras are good, it's very difficult to fully comprehend them. How difficult is that? Wanting to push the two mother scriptures to the perfect state is even more difficult." The sword sect primogenitor sighed and said, "A golden immortal could be considered very strong. Some experts broke through to the golden immortal realm only a few years ago and directly reached the supremacy realm." What was a supreme being? The Emperor of Daos. This kind of person's mastery of Daos and techniques was quite shocking. They could also be called the supremacy realm of the immortal Dao. This was a supreme being. This kind of person was only one step away from Daozu. According to the sword sect primogenitor, Su Yan's Dao was too terrifying. He didn't know why or what kind of fortune he had obtained. Su Yin might also break through to the supremacy realm in the next period of time at the fastest speed. Sword Dragon and the others were shocked. This was too ridiculous, wasn't it? There were still many years before the end of the Emperor Road, but there had never been a moment when someone came out of the Emperor Road and stood in the supremacy realm. If Su Yin really did it, it would really shake the world. Once he stepped into the supremacy realm, he would definitely become an invincible supremacy like the Flame Emperor. He would be able to protect his life from the primogenitor's divine might. This was a legend. The whole universe was shocked. A legend that shocked the heavens and earth and made ghosts and gods cry. It was a terrifying legend with supreme magical colors. In fact, the sword sect primogenitor was a little puzzled. How did Su Yin suddenly master such a powerful Dao technique? What kind of elixir did he eat? In short, Su Yin stood in the ultimate treasure trove and breathed out a breath. The world was overflowing with gold, and it was extremely sacred. It was also extremely blazing. The Dao in the sky resonated with it. He took a breath, and the world was dark. He couldn't even see his own fingers in front of him. What kind of manifestation was this? Only a supremacy could control the big picture. He could control the heaven and earth, and his influence was far-reaching and powerful. The black and white mist has too much influence on me. Su Yin frowned. The breakthrough was too fierce. It was like he had obtained a cheat. It was like he had cheated. On the contrary, if he didn't have the initial sutra to fuse the two mother scriptures, his condition would be worse. He felt that he had to go into seclusion as soon as possible and comprehend what he had learned. He couldn't be affected by these terrifying innate abilities. Otherwise, it would be difficult for him to improve in the future, because the height he was standing at now was too ridiculous. The black and white mist is a fortune. However, if I don't use it properly, I will be destroyed by this fortune. I should stick to my heart and walk my own path. I shouldn't be affected by it. Su Yin shouted coldly in his heart. He had an impulse to destroy the black and white mist. He wanted to cut off his own blade. Of course, the current situation wasn't that serious. Since the black and white mist had already fused with him and belonged to him, he would do everything he could to walk his own path in the future. In a short time, Su Yin came back to his senses. The terrifying pressure on his body dissipated. At this moment, Su Yin felt that this was his true self. Su Yin with flesh and blood. At the same time, He looked at the Xian people's #1 supremacy. We've won. The battle outside was also coming to an end. Some enemies had escaped, but where could they escape to? In the universe's black hole, there were dark creatures hunting them. If they escaped into it, their fates might be even worse. If they wanted to leave Emperor Road, they could only use the teleportation array in the treasure trove to leave. It was impossible to follow the original path. Yuan and the others were covered in blood and panting heavily. They were exhausted from the battle. Now, they knew that the final battle was over. It was time to announce that everything was settled. The Celestial Court had won. The Xian people's #1 supremacy had lost all will to fight. He said in a trembling voice, "Do you have any other materials? Do you?" Now, he felt that he had lost to Su Yin, not because of himself, but because of the black mist. Creation can give you talent and invincible potential, but it's not yours in the end. Su Yin replied calmly, "You've lost. The black mist has returned to its owner. Kill yourself, and I'll give you a quick death." Ha ha ha. The Xian people's #1 supremacy roared. "You've won. You can say whatever you want, but do you dare to say that you can beat me without the black mist? What's the point of saying all this?" Su Yin said coldly, "The most powerful descendant of the Xian people has been defeated by a native like me. You must be angry. Do you want to find some comfort in your heart?" Su Yin, the Xian people's #1 supremacy's eyes were about to pop out of their sockets. The energy in his body was stirred up. Even the purple light flowing in his body was boiling. This was the awakening of the ancestral substance. It wrapped around his body and quickly retreated. "Since you don't want to die a quick death, I'll fulfill your wish." Su Yin stretched out his big hand and slapped forward. His palms stretched out endlessly. It was as big as the abyss and also like the carrier of the universe. It covered the entire battlefield. No matter how fast the Xian people's #1 supremacy was, he couldn't escape from Su Yan's five-finger mountain. Boom! It was an extremely bloody scene. Su Yan's big hand fell from the sky. Just the vast order of laws that fell from his palm had already crushed the body of the Xian people's #1 supremacy. Even his entire body was starting to explode layer by layer. #1 supremacy. The Xian people howled in grief. The entire Xian state was shaking violently. The #1 supremacy was done for. He couldn't live. Su Yin controlled the Imperial Star Zone. He pressed down and blasted the Xian people's #1 supremacy into ashes. As for the ancestral substance that even Daozu coveted, it was suppressed by Su Yan's palm. Su Yin didn't know much about it. However, he felt that it wasn't simple. Once he swallowed it, it would be of great help to him. "It's over." The entire battlefield was wailing. More than a dozen invincible kings had died. There were very few left. Fairy Zixia and Long Daesong fell silent. They were exploring their own golden, immortal great path. "He's dead. The Xian people's #1 supremacy has fallen." The experts who were still holding on were terrified. When a pair of cold eyes looked at them and attacked their minds, great fear rose in their hearts. Their hair stood on end. They were desperate and suffocating. There was nothing left to say. The battlefield had ended. One after another, the elites of the pinnacle sects were killed. In short, in this battle between the two factions, the Heavenly Court came out on top. Apart from a very small number of enemies who managed to escape, the rest were all killed. The rest of the top 100 experts on the Monarch ranking didn't even dare to breathe. They stood in the distance and watched the broken battlefield. He's invincible. Who can compete with him? How will the top 10 spots on the Monarch ranking be decided? The Grand Saintess and the others sighed. Some of them were glad that they didn't participate. Otherwise, they would have been dead by now. Su Yan's strength made them feel suffocated. At this moment, they understood that in this world, in this Emperor Road, there was only one supremacy. Su Yin stood high in the sea of blood and corpses. The scene was a little scary. One person looking down on the Emperor Road, invincible. Su Yin becoming the supremacy of the Emperor Road was a small ending for the book, Emperors Only. Chapter 17:12. Is the Emperor Road going to end prematurely? Countless people were trembling. The entire Emperor Road was in an uproar. The number one supreme being of the Xian people had died in battle, just like that. It was like a dream. As for the kings of the opposing factions, other than a few who escaped into the universe's black hole, the rest of the experts were all killed in the sky. The terminus was dyed red with blood. The killing energy was still surging, and the smell of blood filled the air. It was an extremely tragic scene that appeared on the Emperor rankings. The entire undying heavenly domain seemed to be trembling. A group of terrifying creatures were enraged, and the major continents rumbled continuously. It was like the end of the universe. Some regions even exploded, and terrifying killing intent filled the air. The Daozu creatures were enraged. Everyone suspected that if the peak battle of the Tianyang continent did not end and set the rules, the undying heavenly domain would have erupted into a terrifying final battle. The celestial court shall, some of the terrifying giants could not hold back their killing intent and roared into the sky. A huge crack appeared in the sky, and the boundless land collapsed. Smoke and dust billowed, and killing intent surged. Some of the terrifying creatures wanted to attack the celestial court. One should know that among the experts who died, some were the descendants of the berserk creatures. Bastard, since when has our tribe suffered such humiliation? Even during the celestial court's golden age, something like this had never happened. It ended in total defeat. How ridiculous! The Lord of Hell was furious. He valued the reincarnation body and used the residual medicinal effects of the reincarnation medicine to nourish it. It was supposed to be a peerless golden immortal, but it died in an even more tragic manner than the number one supreme being of the Xian people. The celestial court had even won. It was a great humiliation. More than a dozen ancient peak tribes had joined forces, and yet they had fallen to such a tragic state. They had lost the peak battle, and now they had lost the Emperor Road's younger generation competition. These two consecutive blows had caused the giants in various regions of the undying heavenly domain to be enraged. Some of the terrifying creatures were so angry that their soul light was trembling. The experts from various major factions were terrified. The Emperor Road had been defeated, and these terrifying creatures had really gone crazy. They were going to start another peak battle. In the 9 Cauldron provinces, a mournful roar exploded, shattering the sky. All sorts of destructive cracks appeared in the world. Without a doubt, this was the supreme sect master of the Xian people. He was only a step away from Daozu. His eyes were bloodshot as he growled like a wild beast. When the Emperor Road ends, it will be the end of the celestial court. When that day comes, I will step into the Daozu realm in the 9 Cauldron province and avenge my humiliation. The tens of thousands of sects were in an uproar, their voices echoing into the heavens. In the end, too many people had died, and they all belonged to the same faction. This matter was terrifyingly shocking. Many people stared at the monarch rankings from afar. The silhouettes on the monarch rankings were blurry, terrifying, mysterious, and terrifying. They were like gods of war that only existed in legends. Would an invincible golden immortal be far from the exalted realm? In the future era, the celestial court's Su Yin would grow to an unimaginable level. This is crazy. The experts from the Xian people's factions were all wiped out. Even the golden immortals were killed in battle. No, the reincarnated bodies had also unlocked their golden immortal potential. 2 golden immortals were killed. Such a tragic event has never happened in the Emperor Road. This is crazy. How many eras would it take for such a ruthless scum to emerge? Is he not afraid of being punished by the world? Some people were trembling in fear. After killing so many people and humiliating more than a dozen ancient tribes, who would let him off so easily? Once the Emperor Road ended and the closure was announced, would there still be a place for Su Yin in this world? The Heavenly Court is really going all out by doing this. However, Su Yan's strength is too frightening. With this group of young kings around, there's no way the other races can't rise. However, will the other races like the Immortals give them time? I seriously suspect that the Celestial Court already knew about Su Yan's potential. That's why they reached an agreement with the other tribes in order to fight for a few decades of peace. Many people agreed with this statement, but some sneered. What's the point of a few decades? If Su Yan is given 100 years, will he be able to reach the level of Daozu? I think the Celestial Court is courting death. They have completely angered the other peak tribes and tore apart their last line of defense. In the future, the Celestial Court will have to bear the endless flames of anger from the other tribes. In short, the undying heavenly domain was stirred up. Some of the old ancestors and experts of the peak tribes were so angry that they were about to explode. Shameless. Although the Monarch Ranking Board had not released the results, the 3 spots were already set in stone. Perhaps there would be more than 3 spots. The Emperor Road was also stirred up a terrifying storm. The figure on the Monarch Ranking Board was dazzling, emitting a light that shone upon the universe. He had already become the only supreme overlord in the Emperor Road. Su Yin stood between heaven and earth. The 10 Daesong Mountains suddenly resonated. Each of the sacred mountains emitted a terrifying suction force, guiding Su Yin to enter the sacred mountains to cultivate. He got a spot directly. There's no need for the sacred mountain trials. The Grand Saintess and the others exclaimed. Who wouldn't be jealous of the fortune of the 10 Daesong Mountains? Each sacred mountain was one of a kind in the universe. Once one entered the sacred mountains to cultivate, one would obtain great benefits, especially for Su Yin, who had just stepped into the perfected golden immortal realm. In the following days, he would grow rapidly and could save thousands or even tens of thousands of years of time. The cultivation speed of the perfected golden immortal realm was relatively slow. This realm had high requirements for the environment of heaven and earth. However, with the help of the sacred mountains, it was a different story. Even a perfected golden immortal would receive great help. Now, Su Yin stood in the 10 Daesong Mountains. There was also a terrifying sealing force that was restraining Su Yin. Su Yan's eyes were like lightning. He had already obtained the recognition of the monarch ranking. It would not allow him to continue killing. The Emperor Road was a place to nurture sky prides. Although there were bloodshed and killings, there were certain restrictions. If the Emperor leaderboard did not suppress Su Yin with his combat strength, he would be able to sweep through the entire battlefield. The Heavenly Courts faction would also be able to obtain the top 10 slots. Of course, that was impossible. Otherwise, the Supreme Monarch ranking from the Emperor Road would be able to dominate the Emperor Road. The others would not be able to receive any help. Boom! All of a sudden, the silent Emperor Road's ultimate destination exuded an ocean-like battle intent. Jin Tiangang and the others, who were originally calm, stood up in unison. Each of them had the ambition to conquer the world. They wanted to compete for the Fortune Grounds' sacred mountain. A cold lightning flashed in Su Yan's eyes. Although he did not say anything, the treasure trove suddenly began to boil. An endless pressure began to be born, and it was directed at all the strong people in the top 100 rankings. Endless majesty, terrifying vitality, and cold eyes. Wherever his gaze passed, the experts were silent. This was a perfected golden immortal. He was so powerful that he could look down on the entire Emperor Road. Who could withstand his aura? Each of them felt a chill from head to toe. Even if Su Yin could not attack, the deterrence was too frightening. It shook the heavens and the earth. Fellow Taoists, my heavenly court is now lacking in talents. In the words of your clans, we are a useless clan. Before Su Yin could finish his words, the group of people were about to go crazy with anger. Trash? The Celestial Court had 3 great golden immortals, one after another. He had the audacity to call the Celestial Court a useless tribe. Some people felt that Su Yin was too black-hearted. This was a warning to them, an undisguised warning. My poor Celestial Court, we have no foundation and no fortune ground. Su Yin sighed. My friends, your tribes are all powerful and prosperous. How can the Celestial Court be compared to you? Jin Tiangang was so angry that he was about to vomit blood. The Celestial Court had one expert after another. This tribe was no longer the celestial court of the past. Moreover, the three great spots on the Emperor Road were secured. The era of the celestial court's return to the 9 cauldron states had arrived. Who would dare to not give face to you, brother? In the upcoming struggle for supremacy, we should stop short. Someone wiped off his cold sweat. Moreover, the celestial court now had 2 great experts who were exploring the path of golden immortals. Who would dare to mess around? In short, some people were glad that the Emperor's Road had suppressed Su Yin and prevented this demon from continuing to participate. Otherwise, he might have really dared to dominate all 10 slots and not leave a single piece of soup for the outsiders to drink. My friends, Jin Tiangang suddenly said, we've all gone through layers upon layers of selections and experienced many life and death dangers. It's not easy at all. Moreover, some of us have died while roaming the dark universe. I think it's better to play it safe in the upcoming struggle for supremacy. That's exactly what I was thinking. The Supreme Saintess nodded slightly and said, the ultimate land is a land of fortune. It's not worth it to lose your life in the struggle for supremacy. Of course, if anyone thinks that they can unlock the potential of a golden immortal like the reincarnation body, go ahead and fight for supremacy. However, I have to remind you that the path of immortality is long. Only by staying alive can you strive for a higher realm. More than a dozen elites from the peak tribes died. It was a lesson learned in blood. There was nothing left after death. A great battle broke out, just like that. The struggle for the top 10 on the Emperor Road had begun. Su Yin sat on the mountain and watched the tigers fight. This battle went on day after day. All the kings participated in the battle on the sacred mountain. The battle was exceptionally intense. It was less bloody and cruel. Some of the old antiques in the outside world felt that this battle was too interesting. Since the Emperor Road had already decided on the Emperor Road, there was nothing new to watch. Only a dozen ancient peak sects were covered in wounds and remained silent. This battle lasted for 10 days and 10 nights. It was nearing the end. Su Yin was shocked. Tai Baokai and the Supreme Saintess had fought for a day and a night, but the outcome was still undecided. This made the Supreme Saintess feel very frustrated. There were already 3 golden immortals in the Celestial Court. Could it be that she couldn't even suppress the 4th strongest cultivator in the Celestial Court? In short, Bao Cai's art of endless transformation was unpredictable. Furthermore, she had the ancestral dragon's secret technique. It was not inferior to the Supreme Saint art, the most powerful technique in history. The innate Taoism aptitude is indeed terrifying. She's a great demon in the Celestial Court. I wonder what kind of creature could fight her to this extent. The spectators in the outside world were agitated. The terrifying battle went on day after day. The battles on the other sacred mountains had almost come to an end. Only the battlefield of the Supreme Tao Grotto Heaven was still going on. Roar! After 3 days and 3 nights of bloody battle, Bao Cai was exhausted. It was almost unable to suppress the Supreme Saintess. Finally, it released itself. Its blood-stained body spewed out a terrifying light of blood essence. This scene was enough to make the old antiques in the outside world green with envy. There were too many good things in Bao Cai's body. The endless medicinal power of the nirvana liquid and the essence of the yang fish fry. It burned in the supreme realm and blasted open the path to a golden immortal. Heavens! The whole world was shocked. Another golden immortal was born in the celestial court. Look, what was even more shocking was that the Supreme Saintess had also transformed. After all, she had the innate Taoism aptitude. Billions of great path runes bloomed from her snow-white body. The moment they merged together, they turned into a purple divine fetus. The aura of a golden immortal vibrated. Another 2 golden immortals were born. The whole world was shocked. This was an unimaginable event. Golden immortals were born one after another in this era. This was also something that had never happened in the history of the Emperor Road. This is unbelievable. Countless people were shocked. Some took a deep breath and shouted, I think this is great. After all, 3 golden immortals of the Celestial Court have appeared out of nowhere. Since the beginning of the Emperor Road until now, although the Celestial Court has obtained 6 slots, there's never been an era where they dominated the top 3 of the Emperor rankings. Yes, with the strength of the Supreme Saintess, her innate Taoism aptitude should be ranked 2nd at the very least. She shouldn't be ranked 3rd. The whole world was in a heated discussion. The sect master of the sovereign sect smiled. Very good. We've saved some face. As long as it's not the top 3 of the Celestial Court, it's fine. With the Supreme Saintess potential, it won't be difficult for her to be ranked 2nd. Yes, this day is truly worthy of celebration for our sovereign sect. Such a scene is sufficient to console our seniors. The legendary figures of the sovereign sect laughed heartily. In the history of the sovereign sect, there had only been one peerless genius who was ranked 3rd on the Emperor rankings. Now, there was another one. In short, once the Emperor rankings determined the Supreme Saintess ranking, it was enough for the whole sovereign sect to celebrate. As for the enmity between the 2 camps, what did it have to do with the sovereign sect or the immortal clan? Chapter 17:13. If the Celestial Court, which had been in decline for 1,000,000 years, could create a record more terrifying than the previous Emperor rankings, then was it because the Celestial Court was too powerful in this era, or was the orthodoxies of the world too weak? This was a question worth pondering. Similarly, if it were not for the death of the Cien people's first supreme being, the Celestial Court would not have become so dominant. Some people felt that the Cien people were a little pitiful as they did not even get a single slot. All of them were dead. The thought of it sent chills down the spine of these orthodoxy spines. It was fate that made fools of them. No one knew what would happen next until the very end. Time could really change everything and control everything. For golden immortals, the older generation smiled bitterly. This was the scariest problem. The Celestial Court had given birth to 4 golden immortal experts. Although they were only invincible in the true immortal realm, these people were infinitely close to the Daluo golden immortal realm. This was too significant. In the future, the Celestial Court would give birth to a group of young supreme beings, or rather, they would break through to an even more shocking realm. Golden Immortal, Baokai roared. Its flesh shell was evolving, containing the remaining medicinal power in its body. It was trying its best to break through, causing its life force to burn brightly. The burning of the endless medicinal power provided Baokai with a strong opportunity. Su Yan's face was a little dark. He felt that Baocai's breakthrough had something to do with the treasures it had swallowed. Who knew how much nirvana liquid and young fish seedlings it had swallowed? In short, the eruption of the medicinal power caused Baocai's potential to complete a shocking upgrade. The Supreme Saintess had also broken through to the legendary realm. It was a rare occurrence in the Golden Immortal era, but she appeared frequently in this era. Some people felt that this was the great fortune of the universe, influencing the younger generation. Until now, the Emperor Road's final destination had given birth to 5 Golden Immortals. Jin Tiangang and the others were silent. In the era of Golden Immortals, would they not be able to keep up with the tide of the times? It's nothing, Daozu's son said bitterly. Golden Immortals are terrifying. They all have a certain amount of luck and special opportunities. It doesn't mean that we won't be able to catch up to them in the future. When we step into the Zenith Heaven realm, I believe that the Zenith Heaven Golden Immortals can also rush up in a short period of time. That's right. In the past, there were also immortals who had yet to step into the void immortal realm. They were late bloomers and entered the realm of Daozu. After all, the gap between them was too big, and they didn't feel too good about it. All in all, on this day, the 5 Golden Immortals were shining brightly. Under the illumination of the Monarch ranking, they were like undefeatable suns soaring across the sky, emitting their own brilliance. Of course, the most terrifying one was still Su Yan. He had turned into a magnificent sun, illuminating the land and the rivers. He was worthy of the title of the Supreme of the Monarch ranking. There was no need for any tests. Even a Golden Immortal was killed by him. What kind of genius could compete with him? We can go now. A huge group of experts retreated and headed for the outside world, searching for some super treasure. Although it was difficult to compare them to the 10 sacred mountains, these super treasure locations were still impressive. Even among the peak immortal sects, they couldn't be opened at will. They had to go through a meeting with the clans first. There were golden immortal caves nurtured by the heavens and earth, dragon nests nurtured by the heavens and earth, and chaos caves filled with chaos essence. It's over. Su Yin withdrew his gaze. Bao Kai and the great saintess were already strong enough. There was no need for him to continue fighting. The golden immortal realm was already the limit of the true immortal realm. Meanwhile, Su Yan's deep eyes landed on the center of the 10 Daesong Mountains. His heart pounded heavily. He could vaguely see a mysterious world looming at the center of the mountain. At the same time, there was a strong attraction. It does feel a little familiar. Su Yan was a little absent-minded. After going through so many hardships, experiencing so many trials and tribulations, and rushing through so many life and death paths, he was finally here. His hands were trembling. Was this the place where he was born? Even if it wasn't, even if it was related to something more profound, he should at least have a complete answer, right? Su Yan's nose twitched. He thought a lot. He often wondered who his birth parents were and what they looked like. Were they still alive? Haha, I'm thinking too much. Su Yan's eyes reddened. He suddenly felt sentimental. You shouldn't be like this. You shouldn't be affected by these emotions. His path had been bumpy since he was young. He almost died a few times. If it wasn't for the prehistoric Big Brother, would the Celestial Court branch have survived? In the future, he was still in the Chaos Tower's land of origin. He only woke up a few hundred years ago. Thinking back, it really felt like a dream. I have my home. I have my brothers. I have my elders. Even if I can't find them, I don't need to think too much about it. I have a home that I need to protect. I have my responsibilities and responsibilities. Su Yan took a deep breath and suppressed his emotions. There were still many things waiting for him in the future. There were even more terrifying challenges ahead. In short, his birth parents didn't exist in his memory. There were no memories and no clues. Even if he tried to find clues related to his birth, he still couldn't find any clues. Sometimes, Su Yan really wondered if he jumped out a rock. Just like Sun Daesong in the myths, the Emperor ranking finally roared and woke Su Yan up. He knew that it was time to end it. It was time to set out. His goal was not the 10th Daesong Mountain, but the Emperor Road's ultimate land. Su Yan even suspected that this place was the source of the Great War a million years ago. It's time to release the ranking. The spectators outside were on high alert. The Emperor ranking once again appeared in the sky, revealing the ultimate ranking. Once this ranking appeared, it would also announce the end of the Emperor Road. The Emperor ranking appeared in the sky and emitted a mysterious power that affected the entire Emperor Road. It's over. From this moment on, the entire Emperor Road's big and small regions, the universe's secret realms, and places of fortune began to rumble, waking countless cultivators up. Even in the 10,000 tribe battlefield, there was a group of immortals who were trying to break through to the true immortal realm. Now that they were awakened, they were a little dazed. The Emperor Road had ended. So many years had passed, but they didn't know it all. The Emperor Road has ended. Who's the Emperor ranking? How long has it been? I still haven't entered the true immortal realm. How sad. Has the Emperor Road produced a peak true immortal? They walked out of the secret palace to chat and discuss. The Emperor Road was about to close. Only the ultimate land would continue to open. Su Yan of the Celestial Court. The day of glory was not too shocking, but it was within Su Yan's expectations. The top of the monarch ranking would definitely be Su Yan. If it was in the past, before the Emperor Rankings top 3 was decided, the top 10 would be announced. Since Su Yan's name was the first to appear, it was certain that he would be the first. Su Yan, when I become the Daozu, I'll kill you even if I have to pay the price with my life. The Xian people's sect master roared like a wounded beast. Back then, he had unlimited hopes of ending Su Yan in advance. Now, it was too late to say anything. Because of Su Yan, the Xian people had suffered a crushing defeat. The founding ancestors' million-year plan had also been reduced to nothing. The 9 cauldron prefectures exuded a chilling aura. The entire prefecture could not remain silent. and all the major tribes were trembling in fear. If the Xian people's sect master really stepped into the Daozu and crippled Su Yan at all costs, there might be a high possibility. However, this opportunity also angered Su Yan's admirers. Someone roared, "What's the big deal about that old thing?" Even the Xian people's #1 emperor was crippled. Now, war god Su Yan is the emperor rankings emperor, the most terrifying emperor ranking. When he returns from the emperor road in a few decades, perhaps you won't even need to do anything. Su Yan will be able to kill you. This sentence woke some people up. Perhaps there was a slight possibility. Who knew how strong Su Yan would be after the Emperor Road's ultimate land of creation closed a few decades later? Celestial Court, Long Day Song. The Emperor ranking shook again. Under the expectant gazes of the sovereign sect, everyone blushed when they saw these words. How could this be? Shouldn't it be the Supreme Holy Maiden? Why was it Long Day Song? Everyone in the world was a little confused. What was Long Day Song's background? In fact, Fairy Xia was also indignant. Shouldn't she be second? Why was Long Day Song second? It was too unfair. Su Yan suddenly fell silent. If he encountered Long Day Song when he was an adult, what would the situation be like? Perhaps the Xian people's #1 emperor would be crushed by Long Day Song until he trembled. A 10 transformation true dragon, a heaven-defying existence. If he had the memories of 9 lives, who could compete with him? Long Day Song. Black lines appeared on the Supreme Holy Maiden's forehead. If he wasn't second, then he must be third? Boom! When a third title appeared, the onlookers couldn't bear it anymore and were about to break down. Why was watching the release of the Emperor ranking more nervous than entering the bridal chamber? Who's third? Someone roared. If it wasn't the Supreme Holy Maiden, then it would definitely be Tai Baokai and Fairy Xia. If the Celestial Court dominated the top 3 of the Emperor ranking, it would create an extremely terrifying feat that would affect thousands of generations. Celestial Court Xia. When the 4 words appeared on the Emperor ranking, everyone in the world fell silent. The entire sovereign sect was silent. It was the Celestial Court again, and it was the Celestial Court again. The Supreme Holy Maiden held her forehead. She felt a little dizzy and even a little embarrassed. The most miserable ones were the Mystic Sky sect. They were furious. Not only did the Celestial Court obtain 3 places, they even dominated the top 3 of the Emperor ranking. Sovereign sect, Meng Shuebing. The 4th place on the Emperor ranking appeared. The world fell silent. It was still too weak. Unfair. How can this woman be stronger than this beast god? Tai Baokai was furious. Its eyes were spitting fire. It was indignant. Was it that weak? The Supreme Holy Maiden, who had just smiled, almost cursed it out loud. Do you want me to be the weakest among the Golden Immortals? Celestial Court, Tai Baokai, Jin Tiangang, Fan Jian, Bamboo Moon, Little Azure Dragon, Tong Shi. The top 10 places were announced. What shocked the world was that there were only 2 descendants of Daozu's bloodline, and they were ranked 1st and 2nd from the bottom. The Little Azure Dragon and Tong Shi were like a pair of brothers in distress. They looked at each other and smiled awkwardly. Daozu's bloodline was really weak. Celestial Court obtained 5 places, dominating the top 3 of the Emperor ranking. The world was shocked. But in the next moment, the Emperor ranking rumbled again and a new name appeared. Celestial Court, Yun. The world was dumbfounded. What's going on? Why is there 11 people on the Emperor ranking this time? Su Yan was stunned and looked at Yun. Yun was also confused. She was a little embarrassed by everyone's attention and doubts. Su Yan's eyes widened. He was thinking, could it be that Dao Shuyi was cheating? If she really cheated, who could stop her? Some people in the outside world were going crazy. Celestial Court obtained 7 places and broke the record. I understand now. In the next moment, Su Yan understood. 10 Daesong mountains led Long Daesong and the others to the land of creation to further their studies. But Su Yan was not there. Ha! The Xian people suddenly burst into laughter. Su Yan is not there. 10 Daesong mountains did not lead Su Yan. Ha ha ha! He has lost the qualification to enter the land of creation. Maybe he lost the qualification because he's a Daluo Golden Immortal. Haha, fate really makes fools of people. The underworld clans were excited. Su Yin was too powerful. Once he stepped into the ultimate treasure, the Earth God's treasure, he would become even more ridiculous. But now, Su Yin had lost the qualification. Very well. If Su Yin does not get the chance to enter the Sacred Mountain, he will walk out of the Emperor Road in a few years. The world was filled with murderous intent. Daozu was not allowed to fight, but there were still honorable and quasi-Daozu in this world. The Xian people were the pinnacle clans. How could they forgive Su Yin, who killed so many people in the Emperor Road? Some experts were ready to kill Su Yin even if they had to pay with their lives. After all, this young man's potential was truly terrifying. Once Su Yin was allowed to grow, he would become the second prehistoric Big Brother. Chapter 1714. Isi Yin was in a daze. She felt awkward being the center of attention and doubt of the entire world. Why was there an extra slot? Why did it have to be her? She looked at Su Yin anxiously. Isi Yin really didn't care if he could go to the 10th Daesong Mountain, but Su Yin needed it more than she did. Although the treasures in the outer regions were valuable, they were definitely not as powerful as the unique 10th Daesong Mountain. If Su Yin lost the chance to enter the Sacred Mountain, it would be a heavy blow to his growth. Could it be that the Demon King has lost the chance? The elders in the outside world were shocked. Could it be related to Su Yin becoming a Zenith Heaven Golden Immortal? But that shouldn't be the case. In the past, when the Monarch ranking opened, Ingjia also broke through to the Zenith Heaven realm and entered the 10th Daesong Mountain to further his cultivation. But in this life, he gave up on the supreme of the Monarch ranking, Su Yin. Why was that? Boom! The 10 sacred mountains glowed, one after another, emitting the sound of tsunamis. Each sacred mountain shone brilliantly, flowing with a heavenly might that had existed since ancient times. It was accompanied by a world of good fortune that was enough to make the experts in the outside world go crazy. Each sacred mountain was formed by seizing the good fortune of heaven and earth. Now, the sky was filled with auspicious clouds, purple auras, and the supreme sound of the great Tao resounded, rumbling. Every sacred mountain corresponded to one of the top 10 experts on the Monarch ranking. As the sacred mountains spat out energy, they evolved into universes one after another, guiding them into the sacred mountains. The scene was a little awkward. The supreme of the Monarch ranking, Su Yin, wasn't guided by the sacred mountains. Su Yin stood in the center of the 10th Daesong Mountain. Although he was majestic and had the demeanor of the number one young supreme in the world, he was being mocked by the Xian people and the other forces. At first, they were worried about the future. They were scared that Su Yin's growth was too fast. Once he became an unrivaled supreme being, it would be too difficult to kill him. Now that he had lost the fortune of the Sacred Mountain, it meant that his rate of growth would be greatly reduced. How could the Peak tribes let Su Yin, who had slaughtered countless kings in the Emperor Road's final destination, go unpunished? Even the supreme leader of the Xian people was determined to cripple Su Yin even if he had to pay the price of his life to wash away his previous shame. Why are you still standing there like a clown? Hurry up and crawl out. Someone was very vicious and let out a hysterical roar at the entrance of the Outer Realms Emperor Road. It came from an old ancestor of the Wondrous Heaven sect. He hated Su Yin to the core and wanted nothing more than to skin him alive. Unfortunately, there was a terrifying seal on the Emperor Road. It was impossible for the experts from the outside world to break into the Emperor Road. The entire world was in an uproar. Could it be that Su Yin could not obtain the opportunity to obtain the strongest creation? If this generation's supreme leader of the Emperor Road's ranking was lost, it would really become a huge joke. At this moment, Su Yin was looking at the area surrounded by the 10 Daesong Mountains. This place had been sealed for a long time and was finally open. Su Yin's place of fortune was not the 10 Daesong Mountains. Hence, there was an extra slot for him to enter. On this day, Su Yin was quite calm. His eyes were fixed on the void of the core area. It was as if the ancient universe was rotating. The aura was getting more and more ancient. Boom! At this moment, the 10 Daesong Mountains announced their closure. It would probably take more than 10 years or even decades for them to reappear. When the creation was over, they would be transported out of the Emperor Road by the sacred mountain. Now, the Emperor Road had begun to close on a large scale. Large groups of cultivators were being transported out. The cultivators who left the Emperor Road were all in a daze. The Emperor Road's influence on them was too great. They could not regain their senses for a long time. Apart from the Emperor Road's final destination, all the battlefields in the Emperor Road were closed. Only the final destination was faintly dimming. The Emperor Road's appearance was about to disappear. What's that? Guys, look. It was also at this moment that many experts in the outside world were shocked. At the same time, they also noticed that the core area of the 10 Daesong Mountains was rotating violently. Soon, the aura became violent. It was as if an ancient and majestic universe was gushing out. Boom! In an instant, the entire world was filled with huge black cracks. It was as if they had penetrated through thousands of eras. There was no end in sight. Only a few powerful cultivators were able to see some clues. In the core area of the endless cracks, there was an ancient cosmic celestial body. It was rotating violently, spewing out the light of the 33 heavens. What's that? The outside world was in an uproar. It was an extremely shocking event. After a long time, everyone knew that the strongest creation in the Emperor Road was the 10 Daesong Mountains. However, it was different in this life. A never-before-seen creation had opened. What was it? Many people's eyes turned red. They were emitting bloody light as they let out a low roar. Could it be that Su Yin had obtained a creation that was different from the Emperor Road's supreme ranking? Could it be that there was a place even more terrifying than the 10 Daesong Mountains in this world? In short, they were all in a mess. They opened their eyes wide, wanting to know the answer as soon as possible. However, the Emperor Ranking's projection became increasingly blurry, especially the ancient images. In the end, the Emperor Ranking completely disappeared along with the entire Emperor Road. Even the 10,000 entrances floating in the undying heavenly domain evaporated at the same time. The entire world was dead silent. Countless people were dumbfounded, not knowing what to say. Even the sect masters of the various great clans were stupefied. In the end, the entire world was left with an enormous mystery. These people really were going crazy. Couldn't they just let them know what exactly was going on? Bastard! Someone from the Xian people yelled. Their eyes were wide open in anger. They really did not want to see Su Yin obtain a great creation. Perhaps Su Yin was too terrifying. He was known as the strongest person in the history of the Emperor Road. Therefore, he had opened a never-before-seen creation. So what if he obtained a great creation? Can he enter the Daozu realm in 100 years? Even if he really enters the Daozu realm, the Celestial Court can't let him live. He must be eliminated. Suddenly, the undying heavenly domain rumbled, and an endless murderous aura was born. There was a huge change in the outside world. 10,000 continents were about to sink, and many worlds were about to collapse. It was as if doomsday was coming, and the world was about to be destroyed. Damn it, if they don't let him live, he might as well stay in the Emperor Road. Countless cultivators who came out of the Emperor Road trembled. They thought that the Emperor Road was dangerous enough, but now the outside world was even more chaotic. Terrifying creatures appeared one after another, emitting cold, murderous intent. The continents in the undying heavenly domain rumbled continuously. This was the manifestation of the murderous aura that covered the sky. In the end, the Celestial Court won. Who could still sit still? The Tao ancestor powerhouses were all emitting flames of fury, breaking open the heavens, and the entire earth was trembling. Anyone could sense the murderous intent from the continents in the undying heavenly domain. It swept across the entire world and caused the world to panic. Was the Pinnacle War about to begin? The end of the Emperor Road will be the day of the Celestial Court's destruction. Even the Golden Turtle progenitor roared. How could the Xian people sit still? Of course, they couldn't sit still. More than a dozen of the strongest successors of the Pinnacle sects had died in the battle. Su Yin had destroyed their future hope. If this war really started, it was destined to be the cruelest war in the past million years. Fortunately, the battle in the heavenly sun state had ended, and the major sects had reached an agreement. Otherwise, this war would have erupted immediately. They couldn't let the celestial court rise, and they couldn't let the four golden immortals have the possibility of becoming the Daozu realm overlord in the future. Of course, the major sects were more concerned about where Su Yan had gone. Why is there another treasure ground? It looks scary. What kind of opportunity did Su Yan get? Can we still catch up to him in the future? I don't want to be surpassed by so much. 10th Daesong Mountain was closed, and the treasure ground outside was not calm. The experts who were preparing to cultivate were all awakened. They looked at the core area of 10th Daesong Mountain in shock. The treasure ground had not fully bloomed yet, but the commotion was ridiculous. The heavens and earth trembled, and the sun and moon roared. Endless Tao laws appeared in the sky, as if to congratulate the universe's strongest land of creation. At the same time, an extremely ancient aura filled the air. This land of creation seemed to be submerged in the sea of chaos. When it was completely unearthed, the entire ultimate treasure ground became extremely dark. It was so dark that one couldn't even see their own fingers. The heroes were shocked. What was going on? The strongest land of creation in the Emperor Road had opened, and all the treasures fell silent. It was as if a giant monster from prehistoric times had descended and swept across the entire Emperor Road's final destination. No one knew what kind of space of creation this was. In short, Su Yan walked step by step toward the world of creation. There was a path, and it was very small. With every step he took, Su Yan encountered a terrifying confinement. It was like a trial, as if it was confirming his identity and his origins. In short, Su Yan's chi and blood were boiling. The light of 10,000 physiques shone, and his primordial spirit was burning. As a result, Su Yan's entire being was extremely powerful and shocking. However, before the ancient treasure ground, he seemed insignificant. He took 33 steps in a row. Finally, Su Yan arrived at the main point. He was filled with anticipation as he stepped into a wormhole. I wonder what he'll get. What will he get? At this moment, in the silent Emperor Road, a woman with fluttering sleeves appeared out of thin air. She had a mysterious aura. She had her hands behind her back as she watched Su Yan step into the land of creation. Dao Shuyi suddenly sighed. After a long time, the heavenly cave guarded by the celestial emperor's power had finally opened. At the same time, she knew very well that once this place opened, the Emperor Road would gradually disappear. All of this was because of the realm Su Yan wanted to go to. Once the Emperor Road disappeared, no one could tell what would happen in the future. Su Yan, I hope you'll get your answer. The Celestial Emperor has protected your true fate. Dao Shuyi's mood was getting gloomier. She murmured, Great-grandfather's legendary life shook the heavens. He'll come back. I'm coming. The special path was slightly dark. It was as if he was following the long river of time back to prehistory, back to the land of his destiny. Time seemed to have passed as long as billions of years. As a result, Su Yan seemed very ancient. He could not be seen through it all. It was as if he had turned into another person, an ancient person who had lived for billions of years. Gradually, light appeared before his eyes. He saw a colorful world. It was very majestic. It was like a huge, heavenly platform laid before his eyes. Su Yan seemed insignificant. He was as insignificant as a speck of dust. He was a little dazed. This ancient world was very familiar. He had been here before. He was a little dazed. Gradually, he sat on the ground. For some reason, Su Yan was lying in this vast, ancient land. He was drowsy and wanted to sleep. Chapter 17:15. The muddle-headed Su Yan shook his head fiercely and forced himself to calm down. He still hadn't figured out what kind of region this was, what kind of creation it contained, and what kind of connection it had with him. He suddenly got up. His entire person still seemed especially ancient, especially vicissitudes, and especially mysterious. At this moment, Su Yan couldn't see through himself. Who am I? Where did I come from? Where am I going? It was also as if billions of years had really passed. The memories in his sea of consciousness were a little blurry, about to disappear and forget everything. No, Suyin growled, his eyes wide open. He held his spirit and chi, guarding himself, protecting his great Tao mind, not being disturbed. He couldn't forget his own memories. Even if he was reincarnated, he had to become the Su Yin of this life. This was his true self, not another person. The ancient and majestic nine-colored land was vast and boundless, filled with dreamy colors. A shadow that was as insignificant as a speck of dust was constantly correcting himself, suppressing the mysterious influence, gradually remembering everything. He wouldn't let himself forget any memory, even if it was some insignificant memory. After an unknown amount of time, Su Yin remained clear-headed. His eyes were also bright, losing the old aura as he re-examined this world. The world was very big, colorful, and the space was also extremely ancient, but it was filled with the aura of heaven burial. It was this supreme heaven burial aura that affected Su Yin to be very small. When he maintained an absolutely clear-headed state, Su Yin felt that he was especially powerful at this moment, more powerful than before. Wong. His body shone, blazing brilliantly. The current Su Yin was a golden immortal. His chi and blood were vast, and he had an invincible foundation and potential. He was doing his best to release it, to further strengthen himself. It was a little ridiculous. This was the influence of this ancient world on him. It was as if he was born to stay here and become stronger. He vaguely discovered that his physique was mutating, about to turn into a heaven burial physique, burying the cycle of time, burying all things in the universe, burying everything. Boom! Su Yan's aura became even stronger. His flesh and blood body shone, and the power of 10,000 physiques circulated. The three great heavenly arts circulated at the same time, resonating with a terrifying energy tide. This world. In the next moment, Su Yin sucked in a breath of cold air. No matter how powerful and invincible his explosive power was, it could not affect this space-time at all. How hard was the world here? It was truly inconceivable. With his strength, even in the undying heavenly domain, he could still shatter the dome of heaven and sink the boundless earth, creating a terrifying destructive force. But this place was different. Space-time was deep to the extreme, capable of carrying all energy. No matter how terrifying Su Yan's explosive strength was, he still wasn't able to touch upon the limits of space-time. It had to be said that it was too shocking. Moreover, he couldn't sense any restrictions or pressure. He could release all of his might, but he couldn't touch the true peak. The environment was a bit frightening, and it toppled Su Yan's way of thinking. It seems like the conditions for growth are even more terrifying. Su Yin sucked in a breath of cold air. He couldn't help but feel that the space-time environment of the undying heavenly domain was completely different from this mysterious nine-colored world. His sharp intuition told him that if the limit of the undying heavenly domain was Daozu, there might be something even more terrifying in this place. Cultivation was indeed related to heaven and earth, and its influence was too far-reaching. Then, where did he come to? Was this the prehistoric burial ground space-time? Mysterious. In the nine-colored world, even the sand was of 9 colors. Each grain of sand was filled with the fluctuations of endless time, and each grain of sand seemed to have existed for millions upon millions of years. So heavy, Su Yin stretched out his hand, wanting to grab a handful of soil to study. But he realized that the soil was too heavy. Each grain was shockingly heavy, as if they were condensed into a huge star in the universe. Su Yin felt that it was ridiculous. What kind of world was this? Could it be that he didn't even have the strength to grab a handful of soil? Su Yin pinched a grain of 9-colored soil and opened his heaven's eye to observe it. The soil looked very small, but under the heaven's eye, it seemed to be magnified, rotating, and violet, as if it could shatter the space-time here. Su Yin sucked in a breath of cold air. There was too much soil here, and he couldn't even count it. This was a powerful treasure in itself. Each grain of soil was filled with terrifying energy. If he took a handful and threw it out, he might be able to refine it into a set of terrifying killing treasures. This world is really ridiculous. Su Yan was speechless. He continued to walk forward, wanting to find something else. He didn't know how long he walked, but he didn't see anything different. The nine-colored soil world, the sky was deep, the sun, the moon, and the stars were nowhere to be found. The space was so grand that it was difficult to touch the origin. Su Yin felt as if he was standing outside of the sky, standing above the mortal world. It seemed that there was no end to this place. Gradually, Su Yin fell silent. He sat down cross-legged and muttered, "I should cultivate and become stronger. With my current strength, I can't explore this place of fortune." Although he couldn't find any boundless vitality in this world, he couldn't find any treasures that were beneficial to cultivation. But Su Yin also figured out that this world was filled with nine-colored soil. Every grain of soil contained a pure energy that might be able to help him. He didn't hesitate to do it. In short, he had nothing better to do. If this place of fortune suddenly closed, Su Yin would never be able to enter again. Bang! Su Yin's body blazed. He was no longer silent. He erupted with all his strength, and a vast sea of blood rushed out, filling the heavens and earth. But there was no shaking of the earth or the collapse of the world. Su Yan's vitality was exuberant. He was like an immortal furnace that was burning, roaring out waves of energy. Su Yan was in his strongest state. He revolved the sutra, wanting to swallow the nine-colored soil's energy. But no matter how fiercely Su Yin swallowed, he couldn't absorb a single strand of energy. This made him stare wide-eyed. Most of his attempts had failed, and it would be difficult for him to succeed in the second volume of the body-nurturing technique. The more this was so, the more Su Yin paid attention to it. This meant that this place was not simple. But how could he absorb and refine the energy to strengthen himself? He had just stepped into the Zenith Heaven Golden Immortal Realm, and there was still a lot of room for improvement. If he was in the outside world, he would need a long time to absorb the divine power of heaven and earth, strengthen his body, strengthen his vitality, and explore the great Tao. I can't absorb it successfully. What should I do? Su Yin frowned deeply. The situation was beyond his expectations. He thought that he could smoothly seize the fortune of the treasure, but the result was disappointing. He felt that the way was wrong. The fortune of this grotto heaven most likely required special methods to harvest the energy crystals. In the next moment, Su Yin made an extremely shocking move. His gray blood boiled and suddenly spewed out, shaking off the Inferno Seed Demon. Of course, the Inferno Seed Demon didn't dissipate. It just entrenched itself on his body, turning into a demonic seed and scattering an extremely evil aura. The gray blood boiled. In the past, Su Yin couldn't bear the power of the bloodline. Now that he was in the Zenith Heaven Golden Immortal Realm, he could bear it. Boom! Su Yin changed. It was a little scary. It was as if he had turned into a young, immortal king, entrenched in a nine-colored world. Although his figure was still so small, Su Yin had changed too much at this moment. His flesh and blood seemed to have turned into an immortal fetus, breathing with life. Not only was he breathing through his mouth and nose, but all the pores on his body were breathing. Multicolored light shone brilliantly. His flesh and blood had gained intelligence. Even his heart was beating on its own, becoming strong and powerful, as if it had turned into an immortal heart. Su Yin was shocked. He had changed completely different. It could also be said that the return of his strongest talent had caused Su Yin to change in all aspects. He seemed to have become one with the universe, as if he had turned into a great Daozu. The scene was monstrous. This was a fundamental change. His flesh, blood, bones, internal organs, and even his eyes and hair were all changing slightly. It was as if he was being reconstructed, as if he had obtained a new life. He looked especially divine, transcending the world. This could be said to be Su Yan's complete body, his most powerful state. His bloodline and flesh had merged. His breathing emitted the sound of thunder from the nine heavens. Moreover, the The speed at which he absorbed the energy of heaven and earth had increased by a large margin. It was really a little inconceivable. A super strong talent, an unparalleled flesh and blood body, like an eternal and indestructible sun, slowly rising. It's completely different, but there's no discomfort. This is my talent. Su Yin let out a loud roar. His entire body's divine power resonated. This extremely deep space was faintly distorted. Moreover, the Netherworld Seed Demon was directly crushed by him, cutting off the devil fetus that had affected him for 1,000,000 years. Without a layer of shackles, Su Yin breathed the heaven and earth mystic yellow qi. One could imagine how prosperous and powerful Su Yin was now. His entire body flowed with a divine rain of light, accompanied by the auspicious signs of the great Tao, making him particularly extraordinary. Clearly, he was completely different, very extraordinary and divine. In the end, the gray blood within Su Yan's body began to boil, and even his body emitted an extreme aura. In an instant, the space-time behind him began to collapse. This was a terrifying influence that crossed over from prehistory, bringing with it the might of millions and millions of years, forming a nine-colored world. Su Yin was shocked. This was his bloodline's strange phenomenon. It was like an ancient world that had been suppressed down from prehistory, bringing with it boundless divine might that was difficult to change. It seems like a world. Su Yin was moved. The strange phenomenon in his bloodline was vague and mysterious, like a mysterious great thousand world with trillions of creatures. It brought with it an indescribable majestic aura, as if it could suppress the 9 heavens and 10 earths. Vaguely, Su Yin discovered an enormous figure that filled the great thousand world. The world was beneath his feet, trillions of creatures a dark mass, setting up tables and burning incense, prostrating themselves in worship. This shocking scene also possessed an extremely terrifying influence, enough to penetrate through the past, present, and future, and spread its name through one great era after another. Vaguely, Su Yin sensed a kind of power of faith that was transmitted to this world. It shocked Su Yin so much that his blood and qi boiled, making him seem even more powerful and invincible. He was speechless and gasped. Where did his bloodline originate from? Why did it bring with it such a shocking historical scene? Su Yin was a little confused. He looked at the 9-colored soil on the ground again, and suddenly did something shocking. Su Yan's body drilled into the soil. A small 9-colored graveyard was born. Su Yin buried himself inside and fell into a deep sleep. Chapter 17:16. The little 9-colored dirt slope was piled up in a majestic 9-colored ancient realm. It seemed lonely. Su Yin was a little bewildered. He was shocked by this sudden action. What was affecting him? Was it his bloodline that affected his subconscious? He wanted to crawl out at first, but the soil was too heavy. It was very uncomfortable pressing down on his body. Even breathing was difficult, and he felt suffocated. However, Su Yan's body suddenly stiffened. His body shone on its own within the ancient 9-colored soil, as if it had been activated. It was also as if the human body's treasure had been opened. What's going on? Su Yin was astonished. The ancient soil was glowing like a special great medicine. There was a sweet fragrance rising from it that seeped into one's heart. He felt very comfortable. His corporeal body was warm, as if he was soaking in a great Tao hot spring. It was also as if the origin of the earth was gushing out. It followed Su Yan's skin and drilled into his flesh. At this moment, Su Yin trembled. He felt too comfortable. He was born to need this kind of energy to nourish himself. Gradually, the energy leaking out of the 9-colored soil drilled into Su Yan's limbs and bones. It entered the depths of his bones and scattered into his organs. It permeated in all directions. His entire body was enveloped by the 9-colored energy body. Suddenly, Su Yin realized that the little slope had changed. It had transformed into a deep universe. The surging power of heaven burial was surging toward him. The energy was ancient and pure, mysterious and powerful. White fog gushed out of the pores on Su Yan's body. It was like immortal energy was flowing, causing his entire flesh shell to turn into a glazed color, sparkling and translucent like jade. This was truly flawless. Even the energy of Su Yan's flesh and blood was emitting a fragrance. This was quite outrageous. Boom! In the end, the qi and blood in Su Yan's body flowed and transmitted the sound of landslides and tsunamis. It was very turbulent and began to strengthen during the boiling process. Even Su Yan's primordial spirit was glowing. After receiving a baptism, the origin of his primordial spirit was strengthening. It was as if he had transformed into a nine-colored immortal king. It was divine and dignified. This is fortune. It's too outrageous. Su Yan felt his hair stand on end. He could clearly feel that his body was becoming stronger. It was as if he had swallowed the evolution liquid, strengthening layer by layer. Of course, this was not too fast. Su Yan was already a golden immortal. According to the probability, it would take more than 10 years to improve his cultivation. Normally speaking, it would take at least 3 to 5,000 years to advance from the golden immortal realm to the peak of the golden immortal realm. However, he'd been buried within a special soil, and he'd absorbed the source of energy to ceaselessly grow stronger and stronger. If news of this got out, who would believe it? Even with the support of terrifying natural luck, it was still inconceivable to climb up the Tao at such a speed. However, Su Yan was truly enjoying this type of body constitution. It was also an extremely bizarre upgrade. He buried himself in the earth, stealing the essence of the earth, including the essence of the nine-colored earth, to strengthen himself. After an unknown amount of time, Su Yan felt a little dizzy. The majestic heaven burial aura sprinkled down again and again, baptizing Su Yan. Under the influence of this special pattern, he felt as if he was buried in time and space, drifting in the sea of the universe. It was easy to get lost in this feeling, and it was easy to forget everything. It should be said that the fact that I can absorb the energy of this soil has something to do with my body constitution. Su Yan thought to himself. He regarded his body constitution as a myriad of bodies. However, the myriad of bodies had fused into a brand new body constitution. What should it be called? Could it be called the heaven burial body? Su Yan's sea of consciousness shone brightly. He copied the memories in his soul inside out and hid them in the depths of his sea of consciousness. He was really worried that he would forget everything. He even realized that he wanted to fall asleep, but he could not control himself. Su Yan no longer resisted. He slept here and slowly became stronger and evolved. This was the dream of many people. There was still a long way to go before he became a golden immortal. He really wanted to climb to the peak as soon as possible. To the current Su Yan, his path and method were too powerful and extraordinary. The black and white fog had given him too much. However, Su Yan did not dare to delve into it. Only when he grew stronger could he slowly sort it out. Otherwise, if his realm was too high and his cultivation was too domineering, it would be easy for Su Yan to dissolve himself. Gradually, Su Yan fell into a deep sleep. The ancient little slope was completely silent. Only the thumping of the heartbeat could be heard. Time was merciless. Time flew. 1 year after another passed. Today, the undying heavenly domain was in a state of silence. Every year, there would be some experts who would step into the golden immortal realm. The Emperor Road had provided the undying heavenly domain with too much fresh blood. Only those who had reached the golden immortal realm were qualified to be called the Overlord of the universe. Even in the barren continents outside, they could still be called the Overlord. Generally speaking, the end of the Emperor Road would have a shocking impact for the next 100 years. There was once a heaven-defying person who had pierced through the supreme realm in a few hundred years. In the future, Daozu also had great hope. In the blink of an eye, 10 years had passed. Many things could be forgotten in 10 years. Many things could happen. However, Su Yan's divine might was still there. His influence was great. His legendary story reverberated in the various continents and spread widely. A new era is coming. There were huge changes in the myriad sects. The younger generation took over the important positions in the orthodoxy, while the older generation retreated behind the scenes. There were also young men and women who had just emerged and started their journey. To them, Su Yan's group was powerful and shocking. The undying heavenly domain was exuding their supreme aura that could devour the Emperor Road. This was the goal they were chasing, the invincible experts that they revered. Another 7 to 8 years passed. It was close to 20 years until the end of the Emperor Road. A period of peace was not too long. However, on this day, the undying heavenly domain was in a huge uproar. Some terrifying beings came out of their seclusion. The supreme rules of the great Tao flowed in their bodies. Their might shook the universe and time, and they looked down on the prosperous continents. Everyone in the universe was terrified. Terrifying giants came out of their seclusion in large batches. What was going on? Suddenly, Su Yan's influence in the undying heavenly domain decreased rapidly. In front of these Daozu experts, Su Yan was only a junior. An expert came out of the Emperor Road's end. It's the Yong family's eternal divine body, Yong Qiuling. The entire Yong family was on high alert. The Yong family's ancestor personally went to protect Yong Qiuling. In fact, Yong Qiuling was also shocked. She was the first to come out of her seclusion in the Emperor Road and stepped into the grand heavenly realm. She had also absorbed all the creation materials. However, who would have thought that she would be noticed by a group of terrifying beings as soon as she came out? Just say what you want to say. The Yong family's ancestor was still calm. He knew the origin of these experts. Yong Qiuling did not dare to hide anything. She told him everything that happened in the ultimate treasure trove. She knew very little about the mysterious world that Su Yan had entered. She could not tell him anything. Where did Su Yan go? Yong Qiuling was scared. Most of the people who came were important figures in the Xian people's camp. They looked dignified and serious. Obviously, they were very concerned about Su Yan and wanted to know what treasure trove Su Yan had opened. It might be related to the strongest treasure trove in the Emperor Road, or it might be related to the battle a million years ago. It was very important. The storm came and went quickly. The Yong family was not easy to deal with. Although they were Daozu, they would not get to the bottom of it. The Yong family became more prosperous. Their ancestral land was very lively. After all, Yong Qiuling was one of the few experts who came out of the Emperor Road's ultimate land. She was very close to becoming a grand, heavenly golden immortal. In the next few years, more and more experts came out of the Emperor Road's ultimate land. Without a doubt, history was repeating itself. Almost every expert who came out of seclusion had a prosperous family. There were also countless immortal orthodoxies who came out of seclusion to form marriage alliances. This showed how frightening the influence of the Emperor Road was. However, there was very little talk about the top 10 of the Emperor Road's ultimate land. 20 years ago, the Celestial Court obtained 7 spots. This matter had become a taboo. No one dared to talk about it openly. It was also a series of bloody events that really hurt the Xian people. There was no turning back time. If they lost, they lost. But how long could they endure? Another few years had passed. In the 10 Daesong Mountains, there were also experts who came out of seclusion. They were grand, heavenly, golden immortals and shook the world. At the same time, the undying heavenly domain was surging. Almost 30 years had passed, but it was still not peaceful. The leaders of some pinnacle orthodoxies met frequently, causing the atmosphere of the universe's cultivation world to be very tense. After all, they were the overlords of the universe's cultivation world. Even the slightest movement could affect the overall situation of the universe's cultivation world. Yong Qiuling and the Yingjia of the Emperor Road's ultimate land felt bitter. They felt that they were born in the wrong era. Was the era of terrifying creatures really coming? This was the most terrifying game. If they did not rise completely before it happened, it would be a tragedy. Obviously, they had obtained some inside information. It was shocking. The undying heavenly domain was about to welcome a terrifying change. The Xian people, the ancestral court that had been silent for a long time, suddenly shook with a terrifying radiance. A figure appeared. It was so terrifying that it could tear the universe apart and reinvent the limit of power. His figure was huge and ancient. Behind him, there was an unimaginable power of the world that was faintly manifesting. It was so majestic that it made the entire world tremble. It's time for the undying heavenly domain to be unified. The ancestor of the Sien people walked out. His eyes were like two heavenly swords. His voice was like a huge bell that exploded in the core of the Sien people's ancestral land. The Sien people were in an uproar. Was it time to vent the anger that had been suppressed for 30 years? The battle of the heavenly sun state had ended. Were the rules that had been set for them coming to an end? Although the celestial court was not unified after the destruction of the celestial court, their orthodoxies had dominated the world. It could be considered as a unification, right? Something's going to happen. Zhu Sheng was shocked. He had a high status among the Sien people. He had paid a huge price to bribe a group of old ancestors of the Sien people. He was recognized by the race and held a lot of power. Today, he heard a lot of inside information that shocked him. The atmosphere in the undying heavenly domain was tense. Some people had a premonition that the terrifying flames of war were about to be reignited. It might not be inferior to 1,000,000 years ago. The ultimate treasure of the Emperor Road, the nine-colored world, had not changed for a long time. In these 30 years, only a small slope kept growing bigger and taller. In the end, it piled up into a nine-colored immortal mountain, which also looked like a huge graveyard. On this day, the sound of a heartbeat exploded. It was like a shocking thunder that shattered the void. Its penetrating power was unparalleled, and it contained a vitality that was as boundless as the sea. Images of heaven and earth shaking appeared again and again. The man who had been sleeping for 30 years broke out of the ground from this day onwards. Chapter 17:17. The nine-colored graveyard rumbled, surging with the sound of thunder. It was hard to imagine that this was the sound of a person's heartbeat. The firm and deep void of heaven and earth collapsed, erupting with the sound of thunder, deafening to the ears. Suddenly, the nine-colored graveyard shook intensely, as if a creature that had been buried here for endless years was awakening. It was also like a nine-orifice stone man, continuously gushing out 9 layers of immortal splendor, tearing apart the graveyard. The graveyard was covered in large cracks, the entire graveyard also like a 9-orifice stone man, flowing with 9 layers of immortal splendor. Its influence was great, accompanied by a boundless might, accompanied by a profound immortal Tao aura. If one studied it deeply, they would see a sleeping man, stretching his body in his sleep, causing heaven and earth to tremble. Gradually, his body shone, extremely resplendent. The body's functions that had been dormant for 30 years also revived. From inside out, a grand energy tide extended outwards. Looking from the distance, it was as if a 9-colored sea was engulfing, submerging the heavens, enveloping this space, surging violently, great waves roiling, indicating the divine force within this person's body, flourishing to a terrifying degree. 30 whole years, he had been silent within the 9-colored earth, absorbing energy all day long to strengthen himself. One could well imagine just what level Su Yin had reached. With a loud tremor, the 9-colored soil began to tremble. Su Yin, who had been silent, began to spit out fiercely. As his chest rose and fell, the surroundings began to rumble and shake. Even the heavens and earth were about to collapse. Before Su Yin entered, he still couldn't break through the void here, but now he was extremely extraordinary and world-shocking. Within his body was heaven-shocking power. He greedily absorbed the essence of the earth, his body already reaching the limit. The energy he swallowed flowing out through his pores, flowing back into heaven and earth. This situation continued for several days. The sleeping Su Yin felt fidgety. He wanted to go out. He wanted to open his eyes, once again look at this world, these rivers and mountains, this flourishing age. Finally, his eyes opened, tearing apart the heavens, as if 2 inextinguishable blazing suns filled the sky, blazing brilliance overflowing into the heavens, releasing terrifying radiance. tearing apart this world, also burning this space. His heavenly eyes were too brilliant. The instant they opened, there was heaven-destroying power, a bit of heaven-punishing power hidden within. What is this? This was the incomplete heaven-punishing eye. In the past, Su Yin had regained the black fog and obtained a series of inheritances from the immortal tribe. Although the heaven-punishing eye was incomplete, the fact that it was incomplete was rather shocking. In the past, Su Yin had cultivated all kinds of heavenly eyes. Now, after 30 years of slumber, his heavenly eyes had merged into one and turned into a brand new heavenly eye. In his eyes, lightning interweaved and laws were like a sea. Dragons and phoenixes appeared, accompanied by the primordial power of all things and the power of the universe's creation. It was also accompanied by the great Yin, the great Yang, and all kinds of strange sutras. In the end, Su Yan's heavenly eye changed. It was deep and terrifying, as if it had turned into a sea of primal chaos. It emitted terrifying primal chaos lightning and strands of primal chaos Tao laws. It could instantly pierce through the universe. This was the legendary primal chaos eye. Su Yin had cultivated it, and it was like a heavenly eye nurtured by the heavens. It contained a terrifying deterrent force. This was the heavenly eye. It was relatively terrifying and inconceivable, and it was too difficult to cultivate. It was also known as one of the most invincible heavenly eyes in the world. It could easily see through powerful enemies, tear through illusions, and see through the essence of things. Roar! Su Yin let out a loud roar and unleashed his physical body. The heavens and the earth resonated and the space-time trembled. The soil on the ground danced as a terrifying divine power poured out and once again drowned the space-time. After 30 years of slumber, Su Yin wanted to move his muscles and bones and circulate the qi and blood in his body. He faced the heavens, bombarded the earth, and jumped up and down. Strange phenomena of gods crying and ghosts crying appeared around him. It was as if the world's most terrifying golden immortal had appeared out of nowhere. He emitted endless majesty and released terrifying heavenly might. He was also like a completely new living being without any memories. He ran on the ground and roared in the heavens. He circulated his physical body in the universe and displayed a series of heavenly arts. He was free and unfettered, and he was very happy. After an unknown amount of time, Su Yin was tired and sat on the ground. He began to think about who he was and why he was here. This world was too deep and vast. No matter how hard he struggled, he couldn't break out. He wanted to split open the sky and know why he was still alive. At this moment, he realized that there was something hidden in his sea of consciousness. In the end, Su Yin opened the sealed memories and absorbed them all. After a whole day of silence, Su Yin regained his clarity. I'm Su Yin. He stood up and clenched his fists. The divine power in his body was boiling like the sea, and he could cause the heaven and earth to tremble at any time. How much time has passed? Su Yin was greatly shaken. He had increased his strength too much and felt that he was much more terrifying than 30 years ago. He was like a peerless true dragon trapped in a nine-colored world. He seemed to have mastered all his abilities and could run amok between heaven and earth without any scruples. He hadn't stepped into the Supreme Being level, but Su Yin felt that he could beat up a Supreme Being. This was the belief of monstrous magical power and remarkable abilities. His aura rushed into the heavens, and he looked down on everything. His improvement was really too frightening. 30 years of slumber, absorbing the energy of a nine-colored soil day and night to nourish the body of a golden immortal. Could it be that he had touched the ultimate domain of a golden immortal? In short, this was especially frightening. Su Yin was also a little sluggish. His fortune was too great. After sleeping for 30 years, he woke up full of essence, energy, and spirit. His body functions were strong, and he didn't know what domain he was standing in. In short, he was very powerful. Boundless divine power surged in his body. The changes were too great, and he didn't even recognize himself. He spent a lot of time familiarizing himself with his power and stabilizing his foundation as a golden immortal. In particular, his mastery of Tao and techniques could be said to have reached the point of perfection. If it was 30 years ago, Su Yin would have been afraid of his own profound skills and was worried that he would dissolve himself. But that wouldn't happen now. At the same time, he couldn't find any trace of the black and white mist in his body. It was obvious that these two supreme substances had merged with Su Yin. God knows how long I've been sleeping. What happened in the outside world? Have Bamboo Moon and the others come out of seclusion? Has the Emperor Road ended? Su Yin suddenly had an idea. He wanted to go out, but he didn't know what had happened in the outside world. Although the Battle of the Tianyang State had ended, the rules were set that Daozu was not allowed to fight to the death. However, he didn't know if the Xian people and other pinnacle tribes could suppress their anger. Dozens of pinnacle heroes had died in the final battle. Those who died in Su Yan's hands were the most invincible Ingjia. He had sacrificed the kings and stepped into the golden immortal realm. The Xian people couldn't swallow this anger. At the same time, even if they could suppress the Emperor's Road, it had been a long time. Perhaps the Emperor's Road had already ended. I want to go out. Su Yan's eyes shone with a cold light. He was no longer the Su Yan of 30 years ago. He was even more powerful and earth-shattering now. Su Yan let out a long howl and roared at this world. He wanted to open a way out. The creation had ended. Go out. In the end, Su Yan's roar rumbled. It was filled with the aura of a divine devil overlord. The surrounding space and time cracked open. He poured out all his abilities and blasted open an ancient door. A lower realm door? Su Yan was astonished. He saw an energy door that was constructed from supreme order and law. A few words also appeared. Su Yan sensed the profound meaning contained in them. He was moved. A lower realm door? What does this mean? Could Su Yan be in the upper realm? A lower realm door? Su Yan scratched his head. This name was strange. If he followed this path, what realm would it lead to? Of course, Su Yan wasn't in a hurry to leave. His eyes scanned the 9-colored soil all over the world. Each of the special grains of soil was extremely heavy. He couldn't collect them in large quantities 30 years ago. However, things were different now. There's power in this soil. Su Yan frowned. He tried to collect it with his storage treasure, but it failed. Moreover, even if he could collect it, the weight of the 9-colored soil was too heavy for his storage treasure to bear. In the end, Su Yan made a decision. He opened his mouth and sucked fiercely. Countless grains of soil began to tremble. In the next moment, Su Yan let out a long roar. The 9-colored soil filled the sky and rose up like a 9-colored flood rising from the ground. Because it was too heavy, it collapsed the deep space and gave birth to countless large cracks. One had to know that every grain of 9-colored soil was heavier than a great star in the universe. It was quite frightening. Now, the divine power in Su Yan's body surged violently. The earth directly surged up 100,000 grains of 9-colored soil. It was as if 100,000 great stars in the universe were attacking the great universe. The scene was shocking. Refined. Su Yan spread out his hands. His body transmitted the sound of ancient and world-shaking scriptures. The 3 great heavenly scriptures operated. With Su Yan's current terrifying level, the 3 layers of scriptures emitted a grand aura. It was as if 3 sleeping ancient emperors were awakening. Su Yan's body was like the universe. Yin and Yang coexisted within, evolving millions of strange phenomena. It also released the grand might of the universe, shaking the universe's starry skies. The qi and blood in his body leaked out. The laws leaked out. The Tao burned, covering 100,000 grains of 9-colored sand. Su Yan was refining a great killing weapon. He was using his special envoy's influence to produce a resonance with the 9-colored sand. Every grain of sand leaked out 9-colored immortal splendor, containing the mysterious power of heaven burial. The 100,000 grains of sand emitted holy light. Under the push of Su Yan's large hands, every grain was infected with his aura, his Tao, and Tao. The process was very fast, but there was too much sand. Su Yin spent no less than 9 days and 9 nights to completely change the 100,000 grains of 9-colored sand. They were like 100,000 great stars in the universe filling the sky. Boom! In the end, the 9-colored sand that filled the sky went berserk. It spun violently and collapsed this space. There was a terrifying power, as well as an extraordinary heaven burial aura. The 100,000 grains of 9-colored sand also seemed to form a 9-colored star domain. It covered this world and scattered down the light of vast scriptures. Su Yin was shocked. It was so powerful that he felt a terrifying pressure. It was as if the 9-colored sand that filled the sky was pouring down enough to destroy him. What a powerful, supreme treasure. Su Yin also grinned. This was the first set of grand immortal supreme treasures he refined. Similarly, this supreme treasure was connected to his constitution. Every grain of 9-colored sand contained powerful destructive power. However, if 100,000 grains of sand were to be used together, it could be imagined that it would be enough to make a supreme expert's face turn green. Then, let's call it heavenly stars. In the future, it won't be just 100,000 grains. It will be 1,000,000, 10,000,000, 1,000,000,000,000. Su Yin laughed loudly. He named this set of supreme treasures heavenly stars. Boom! Suddenly, the heavenly stars recombined, turning into a 9-colored torrent. They fell down with crashing sounds, lining up on Su Yin's body. Soon, the heavenly stars turned into a set of sacred 9-colored battle clothes. He was really armed to the teeth. Su Yin regretted that his limit was only 100,000. It's time to go. He didn't waste any more time. His eyes stared at the lower realm's entrance. Carrying curiosity and shock, he rushed in. What kind of place would he arrive at next? Chapter 17-18. Su Yin rushed into the lower realm gate. As soon as he stepped in, he disappeared without a trace along the lower realm gate. As for the entire 9-colored world, as it returned to silence, it was filled with heaven's burial fluctuations. It was as if the entire golden age and billions of reincarnations had been buried. It was mysterious and unpredictable. Su Yin felt as if he was traveling through time. The light before him was dim, and even as powerful chaos, I could not see the specific scene. This path was relatively special. The aura of time was very dense, and it was accompanied by the elusive power of time. Suddenly, Su Yin felt as if he had crossed into another universe. He also felt a shocking influence that caused Su Yin's body to wither a little. He was shocked. How far had he traveled? He was now a Daluo Golden Immortal. He was no longer the Su Yin of the past. Even the undying heavenly domain. He was an Overlord expert. So what if he was the sect master of an immortal sect? With Su Yin's current achievements, he could stand on equal footing with these experts. In a dark space, there was a hazy layer of fog. It was like a bubble of the universe, blocking Su Yin's senses. Su Yin thought that he was crossing the lower realm gate and returning to the undying heavenly domain. However, Su Yin did not want to leave now. There were still some things that he had not figured out. What was the shape of the treasure trove he was in? Su Yin still had a vague idea. He had risked everything and gone through life and death to finally step into the Emperor Road's final destination. He had also stepped into the Emperor Road's final destination, the treasure trove. If he did not figure out what was going on, he would not be satisfied. I've arrived at my destination. At this moment, Su Yin had completely entered the mysterious world. His feet touched the ground, and he stood still. The world was still so gray and filled with the vicissitudes of time. There was also a strong sense of sadness that affected Su Yin. His emotions were stirred. What kind of world was this? He could not see anything clearly. The heavens were covered, and he could not sense any great Tao. It was dead silent. It was like a dead world where life had reached its end. It was also like a broken universe floating in the heavens. What's that? Su Yin was amazed. Someone as powerful as him had nothing to fear in this special and unknown world. He was no longer a weakling. But at this moment, in a misty world of death, bloodlight appeared. Powerhouses withered and died, and the heavens seemed to have exploded. A rain of blood swept outwards, forming a scene of millions upon millions of gods and devils withering away in outer space and time. Su Yan was shaken. Even though he had slaughtered his entire life, this scene still left him shocked. The destructive power was too world-shocking, the layout so grand it was difficult to see the entire picture. Just a corner of time and space was filled with endless blood and destruction. Su Yan felt chills all over his body, as if he had fallen into the world's strongest purgatory. Su Yan saw an outrageous scene. The end of the universe had arrived. Gloomy winds howled angrily and bloody rain poured down, drowning the world. It was as if an unparalleled demon was awakening, bringing about the most powerful bloody calamity in the world. It was as if Daozu creatures were dying continuously in the sky. There were immortal kings nursing grievances, and there were supreme powerhouses withering away. This was not just shocking, but a kind of unparalleled ferocious might that almost made him fall weakly to the ground. This was a real battle. It was too cruel. All living beings in the universe were in despair. It was clear that they had encountered the attack of an unparalleled great enemy. All living beings were going to nurse grievances. What is this place? Is this a prehistoric battle? Su Yan was furious. He was no longer calm. Hot blood surged in his chest, infected. Moreover, he also resonated with the emotions emitted by this bloody world. He did not despair. He emitted a powerful fighting spirit, wanting to charge in and participate in the battle. But Su Yan could not see who the enemy was. It was only one scene after another, falling down along the long river of history. It lay across this world, reflecting in Su Yan's eyes. The heavens were dyed in blood. Mortal Dao was destroyed. The universe was reduced to a land of death. It was a world-destroying battle. Su Yan saw the most exceptional woman. Her style was exceptional, looking down on the starry sky, indescribably beautiful. When she raised her hand, it was a supreme great Tao order. When she spat out a breath, ancestral matter would fill the sky, containing unrivaled holy might. It was enough to burn down the great universe, attack the 3,000 ancient realms. She was powerful to an inconceivable level. The woman wore armor refined from 9-colored mother essence. She was exceptionally powerful, facing an unknown great enemy. However, she died. An exceptional beauty had her head chopped off, and her fragrant jade was ruined. That was a blade surging with dark light. It was powerful and tyrannical, severing the long river of time. Its murderous power was difficult to describe, as if it hacked apart this universe. It was an exceptional blade, like a supreme demonic blade that could wipe out all living things. The exceptional woman nursed grievances. Before she died, she gave Su Yan a look. Her beautiful, blood-dyed head still carried a smile. Su Yan was battered out of his senses because he felt that his loved one had died. Was it because of her smile, or did they know each other to begin with? Is this a darkness disaster? Su Yan roared. Was this the bitter experience of all living things in prehistoric times? Was this a fault in history? His emotions surged. The universe was ruined, becoming a universe of blood. It couldn't calm down after endless years, gradually returning to nothingness. Only a few remnant scenes allowed Su Yan to see some things that had happened in the past. Would history repeat itself? Would the bloody calamity of prehistoric times happen again in this world? At this moment, the lower realm gate appeared in the sky again. Su Yan went on his way in a daze, but he encountered a similar event again. Heaven and earth collapsed, the great doomsday descending, destroying everything. Su Yan saw a heroic man, his domineering aura overflowing into the heavens. He was like a matchless monarch, moving the sun, moon, and stars. He carried the vicissitudes of history, as if he had lived for thousands of years. He was very powerful and terrifying, the power of the universe whistling through the heavens. He was truly like a supreme overlord born in the age of creation, resisting an unknown enemy. Boom! He carried a sky-piercer halberd, and he was even more domineering. He swallowed the heavens and charged towards the blood-stained heavens. He was like a wounded beast roaring, wanting to kill all enemies within, tearing apart all darkness and inauspiciousness. But such a powerful person was also killed. His glabella split open, and his primordial spirit was severed. He couldn't see who the enemy was at all. It was just a remnant scene from prehistoric times. The entire universe had withered. This was a land of blood and death, riddled with holes that couldn't be restored even after endless years. Su Yan was heartbroken. He felt that another loved one had died in the hands of the enemy. The lower realm gate appeared again. Su Yan was filled with sorrow as he charged forward once more. He wanted to reach the end, and he also wanted to know how many universes existed in this Emperor's Road's ultimate treasure world, because Su Yan felt that every universe was different. Similar scenes continued to play out. Su Yan was numb. He saw another woman. She was enchanting and peerless, dancing like a heavenly demon. She had 9 tails, and her smile could cause the world to lose its color. This was the legendary 9-tailed celestial fox, who had 9 lives. She had perished 9 times in a row, never to return. What kind of enemy are these? Who are you? Who am I? Who can tell me? Su Yan finally let out a roar. He was boiling with anger, and the ancient heavenly burial body was awakened. Are you showing me these scenes to let me know the cruelty of the future? He wanted to know the answer. He wanted to understand what they had experienced. Was this a prehistoric war? Was this the experience of the burial ground era? Was this the dark torrent of history? Were they the protectors of the universe? The most powerful beings died one after another, causing the universe they were in to bleed. What was left was only death and destruction, and it still exuded a feeling of despair. They had lost, and there was no way to reverse the situation. Otherwise, why would the universe be filled with great sorrow? Su Yan was sorrowful. He had gone down to the lower realms and witnessed a series of tragedies. He really felt that these people were very close to him. They were of the same origin as him. He had gone down to the lower realms, 32 heavens, and witnessed a series of terrifying tragedies. His pupils were red and bloodshot. His chaotic pupils reflected some terrifying scenes of battle. They were all bloody scenes, causing Su Yan's entire being to be filled with the smell of blood. He was like a soldier who had broken through layers of reincarnation purgatory. He didn't despair. Instead, his fighting spirit was high, and a terrifying battle intent surged. Roar! He let out a long roar. If history repeated itself, he wouldn't be a weakling. He would become the most powerful being to fight. Even if he died in battle, he didn't want to be destroyed like weeds. I want to step into the realm of Daozu within 100 years. Su Yan released a terrifying essence, energy, and spirit. He made a great wish. He wanted to become the Daozu and become the most powerful being in this universe. Even if history repeated itself, Su Yan still had the power to fight. In the end, when Su Yan crossed over and arrived at the lower 33 heavens, it was hard to imagine what kind of structure the 33 heavens had. At this moment, Su Yan felt that he had come to a wider world. He had come to the source of the earth, to the origin of life. It was as if this was the foundation of the 33 heavens. There was no blood, no darkness, and no killing here. Su Yan was a little uncomfortable. He suddenly came to the sacred land. Looking into the distance, immortal mist filled the air. The sacred and magnificent mountains and rivers were sacred to the extreme. This was a pure land full of immortals. It was a beautiful and magnificent world with rising clouds and rosy clouds. Su Yan was stunned. Had he come to the immortal world from hell? It was a bizarre experience. It was a little unbelievable. He found a grand mountain gate hanging above the 9 heavens. There were many living cultivators here. Most of them were young and full of vitality. They were full of yearning for the future. Su Yan felt somewhat out of place with the environment here. It was difficult for him to blend in. He was like an overlord who had slaughtered his way out of hell. On the contrary, the cultivators here were relaxed. They chatted and laughed with each other. There were no disputes or battles. Each and every one of them emitted the heart of seeking immortality. Boom! At this time, the Grand Mountain Gate bloomed. Groups of cultivators walked towards the mountain gate. Each and every one of them was solemn, as if they were on a pilgrimage. Su Yin touched his head. Was this another universe? Another world of cultivation? He also rushed in with a large group of cultivators. Congratulations to the 33rd generation of disciples of the burial cave for returning to the mountain gate. All of a sudden, an ancient voice resounded endlessly in his ears. It rumbled and penetrated deep into his soul, causing Su Yan's body to emit light that was blazing to the heavens. Even if it was another world, Su Yan was peerless. Chapter 17:19. It existed in the mythical rivers and mountains, and it was magnificent. It was hard for the later generations to imagine that such a majestic sacred land existed in the world. Heaven Burial Cave, which was suspended above the 9 heavens, was steaming with auspicious clouds. The great Tao had turned into flowing light, flowing between the mountains and the earth. The spiritual qi here was like a tide, and the vitality was vast, nurturing all living beings. It was also like a torrent of energy in the mortal world. It was accompanied by the steaming purple clouds and the flow of ancestral matter. It was shocking. What was a sacred land in the mortal world? What was a world of immortals? This was the perfect representation. The vast world was really the core of the universe. It exuded the vital energy of the universe, nourishing the beautiful mountains and rivers. Between heaven and earth, there were huge, auspicious beasts. They spewed out rays of light, breathed in starlight, and flowed with vigorous qi and blood essence. There were also true dragons that leaped up and opened their mouths to roar. A huge dragon ball rotated in the sky, and it was even more dazzling than the stars in the sky. This place was too extraordinary. Auspicious beasts could be seen everywhere. Between the mountains and the earth, there were also herb fields that grew rare secret medicines. There might even be some ultimate precious medicines that took root here, emitting supreme symbols of the great Tao. Top secret mansions could be seen everywhere, one after another, and they were majestic. The Emperor Road's ultimate treasure trove was enough to make all the immortal orthodoxies in the world green with envy. However, it was nothing compared to this place. The Emperor Road's ultimate treasure trove was like a small part of this sacred land that had been carved out of it. It was a shocking amount of wealth. However, even Daozu would be stunned if he came to the sacred land of the legends, and he would not be able to say a word. What? The 33rd generation disciple of Heaven Burial Cave has appeared. The place was in an uproar. The young men and women who had just arrived at Heaven Burial Cave's mountain gate were shouting excitedly, as if they had encountered the greatest blessing in their lives. Their gazes fell on Su Yan's figure, who was exerting all his strength. They had to admit that his performance was powerful and stunning. Under the resonance of the 3 mother scriptures, the Tao sound was like the sea, and it was as if a condensed universe was blooming. Ah! Su Yan looked up to the sky and roared. He did not know why he was so excited and moved. It was as if his soul had returned to his homeland. He let out a series of loud laughter that shook the world. Moreover, the entire great Tao fluctuation was turning into a real universe paradise that carried the Tao of the heavens. He is extremely powerful, his foundation like a heavenly abyss. This is potential that can soar into the heavens. In the future, my burial earth will give birth to a great expert. A young cultivator was speechless. His gaze was focused on Su Yan as he said, "Legend has it that the Heaven's Burial Cave can only recruit 33 disciples at most. In that case, he is the final one. What exactly is so special about him? To be able to become the last disciple of the Heaven Burying Cave, he definitely has something extraordinary about him." A beautiful woman stood out and said with a smile, "Who knows, maybe when you grow up in the future, you will be able to bring unparalleled glory to the burial ground and be crowned king. I really want to spar with him and see how big the gap is between us." There was also a group of people whose auras were extremely terrifying and strong. Among them were all types of terrifying constitutions. Their blood and qi surged into the heavens. the Tao within their bodies surging like a sea, powerful and flourishing. They were the most outstanding Ingjia in this world's burial ground. What was Heaven Burying Cave? This was Burial Earth's core, Burial Earth's most powerful sacred land, as well as the place where countless geniuses gathered. Every single one of them had something extraordinary about them. In the younger generation, there were a few golden immortals and a few great golden immortals as well. They were all extremely powerful and extraordinary, cultivating all types of ancient heavenly arts. There were even a few whose bodies faintly flowed with the radiance of mother energy. However, in contrast to their astonishment, a man who looked like a Sun Emperor said, "I can vaguely sense the aura of the Sun Mother Scripture." Wrong. I can sense the aura of the great Een Mother Scripture. A shockingly beautiful woman spoke. Her limpid eyes looked at Su Yin, really wanting to communicate with him. What? Could it be that he is cultivating two great Mother Scriptures at the same time, but there's a type of terrifying great Tao fluctuation within his body? Could it be that he is cultivating three great scriptures at the same time? However, according to what I know, there are only two great Mother Scriptures in this world. What scripture is he cultivating that can be mentioned in the same breath as the Mother Scripture? They were discussing fervently, their gazes fixed on Su Yin. They felt that this person was very special, shrouded in a layer of mist. Su Yin was a little embarrassed by their gazes, because the cultivators around him were all dragons and phoenixes among men. They had great potential, and there was a large number of dragon and phoenix physiques. If this group of people was really heaven-defying in the undying heavenly domain, they could support an invincible great sect. Burial Earth, could it be that I have really come to the prehistoric era? Su Yin was overwhelmed with emotions. The name Burial Earth was not unfamiliar to him. It was from the prehistoric era, and it was once cut off from history. Then, he came from billions of years in the future. This experience was truly ridiculous and frightening. However, he felt that this world was too real. Could it be that Burial Earth still existed? Heaven Burial Cave, Su Yin murmured. This was a pure land of legends, and to Su Yin, it was too shocking. A large number of golden immortal caves, or Daozu caves, stood between the mountains and the earth. Moreover, he could feel that in the depths of Heaven Burial Cave, there was a faint and endless blazing qi and blood that could drown the universe. What kind of expert was this? Was it Daozu, the big Luo, or was it an expert of another level? Little junior brother, a pleasant laughter came, and it was very moving, interrupting Su Yan's thoughts. He looked over and saw a little girl with long hair that reached her waist. She was wearing a beautiful silver robe. Her eyes were very big, and when she smiled, they curved into crescent moons. Two small dimples appeared on her cheeks. The beautiful little girl, lively and cute, waved at Su Yin. Su Yin was a little dizzy. Today's experience was too bizarre, and he was unable to react. He had become the 33rd generation disciple of Heaven Burial Cave, and he also had a little senior sister. What kind of path was he on? Whoosh! The silver-robed little girl appeared beside Su Yin in a flash, giving Su Yin a fright. Her speed was a little strange, and he couldn't see her movement trajectory at all. Her slender figure was also faintly emitting the aura of the great Tao. Supreme. Su Yan's mind trembled. This was a supreme powerhouse. This excessively cute little girl, with small dimples on her cheeks, was actually a young Supreme. Who would believe it if he told others? Su Yin didn't know how old she was, but she was full of vigor. She couldn't have cultivated for more than 1,000 years. Xiantian Dao body. Soon, Su Yin was completely moved. Coming into close contact with the little girl, he felt as if he had fallen into the abyss of the great Tao. He saw the arrangement of the great Tao that filled the sky, revealing a thick aura of the great Tao. He could vaguely feel that she was about to turn into an invincible female saint. Little junior brother is not an ordinary person. Even in little junior sister's Tao world, you can still maintain absolute clarity of mind. You are not an ordinary person. A voice of praise came. The voice contained a terrifying, penetrating power, touching Su Yan's primordial spirit. Su Yan's eyes swept over. An especially domineering man was tall and sturdy. His bronze skin was strong and powerful, and his flesh and blood faintly emitted the sound of a true dragon's roar. True dragon body. Su Yan was speechless. This man was quite shocking. His vitality had turned into the light of a true dragon, incomparably powerful. Su Yan even saw a thick true dragon coiled around the man's body. It spilled down an unparalleled divine power that could move the entire universe. This was a supreme. Su Yan even felt that he was very strong. Perhaps he was infinitely close to Daozu. The little girl with waist-length hair waved her fist at the man. She frowned and muttered, "Little junior brother is here. I'm no longer little junior sister. Can you remove the word little from my name?" Ha ha ha. The black-clothed man laughed heartily. He had a forthright personality and said, "Tai Shang, you've just touched the peak of the immortal Tao and haven't stepped into the saint realm. Is it wrong for senior brother to call you little junior sister?" Tai Shang? Su Yan was stunned. This little girl's name is really domineering. He suddenly thought of the Tai Shang sect and the saintess of the Tai Shang sect. He thought that this little girl called Tai Shang would not be related to the Tai Shang sect, right? After all, this place belonged to the prehistoric era, the burial ground era. Then how did the orthodoxy of the immortal heavenly domain form? It couldn't have appeared out of thin air, right? Or was it created by a group of people who survived the burial ground era? With Tai Shang's cultivation and potential, was it difficult to become Daozu? It was definitely not difficult. 31st little senior brother. You're third from the bottom. Tai Shang snorted. She glanced at the black-clothed man with her big eyes and pouted. The black-clothed man's face was slightly red. Su Yan was the 33rd generation disciple. Tai Shang was the 32nd generation disciple. And the black-clothed man was the 31st generation disciple. They were the three youngest disciples of the burial ground cave. Then, the black-clothed man chuckled. Senior brother is about to go into seclusion and attack the gate of the sage realm. Tai Shang glared at him. At the same time, she said worriedly, "The test of the sage realm is very strong. You'd better wait for your senior brothers to return from above and let them protect you before you attack." The black-clothed man did not mind. Although the test was very strong, his strength was enough to break through all obstacles and take a big step forward in his cultivation. "By the way, little junior brother, you've returned from above. How are your senior brothers?" Tai Shang asked with concern. Su Yan's heart thumped. Above the heavens? Could it be the upper heaven? This was the first heaven. There were 32 heavens above it. As for Su Yan, he came from above the lower world. But they were all dead. Could it be that Tai Shang and the others did not know? Or could it be that what Su Yan had experienced previously was a change in history? His mind was unstable and full of sadness. His eyes were a little red. How could this be? How could this be? He could not bear to look at Tai Shang and the others. Would these people all die in the future? Would they all become illusions? Would they all be reduced to mere ripples under the catastrophe? Junior brother. The black-clothed man shouted and let out a true dragon sound, shaking Su Yan's thoughts. Then he said with a dignified expression, "Junior brother, your Taoist heart is a little unstable and a little chaotic. I see that your cultivation is strong, but why are your thoughts so messy? I think it's better to reach the peak of the immortal path as soon as possible and cut off all distracting thoughts. Only then can you enter the sage realm quickly. Thank you for your advice, senior brother." Su Yan's mouth was full of bitterness. "Little junior sister, I'm about to break through. Take junior brother to the 10,000 Arts Hall to choose a suitable great path seed and help junior brother perfect the immortal path realm as soon as possible." The grand elder grinned and agreed. The 10,000 Arts Hall was the strongest treasure in Burial Cave. The little girl could not forget the treasures in the hall. Now that she had a chance to go there again, she naturally agreed. "Little junior brother, why don't you call me senior sister? When the time comes, will give you a lot of treasures." Tai Shang was happy. Ever since she became a disciple of Burial Cave, she had always been called little junior sister. Now that she had been promoted to senior sister, her cute face was full of pride. She had her hands behind her back and her hair reached her waist. She was very happy. Bitter, I said I would get up at 5 to write, but I didn't get up. I only got up at 7. Let's talk about a more tragic thing. Since Christmas, today is the fourth blackout. Today, it was from 8 in the morning to 6 in the evening. I really don't have the strength to complain, alas. Chapter 17:20. The prehistoric era, the era of burial ground. The realms in this era were different from those in the immortal celestial domain. They were two completely different systems of practice, but the order of practice was almost the same. What was the complete realm of Tao? It was the supreme realm, of course. Suyin would be a supreme if he went one step further. In the history of burial ground, they called it the immortal Tao realm. Once the immortal Tao realm was complete, it would be the ultimate realm of the immortal Tao. Then, the next step would be the saint realm. In the immortal celestial domain, it was a giant known as Daozu. It was so terrifying that it was the ultimate power of the universe. The saint realm was the Daozu. Whether it was Grand Supreme or the black-clothed man, they were only one step away from the saint realm. This shocked Su Yin from the bottom of his heart. What was the background of Burial Ground Cave? He was now the 33rd generation of disciples, the weakest one. Then, except for Grand Supreme and the black-clothed man, the rest were all in the saint realm. What kind of power was this? It was unimaginable. Of course, Burial Ground Cave didn't only have disciples, but also other great beings. So, how terrifying was this power? Compare with the most powerful era of the ancient celestial court. Which one was stronger? Su Yin had too many questions in his heart. Of course, what he wanted to know the most now was who the master of Burial Ground Cave was. What? You don't even know your master? Grand Supreme stared at Su Yin as if he were a monster and said, "That is the great Bury the Heavens, the most powerful being in Burial Ground, the one who created the best practice environment in Burial Ground. Bury the Heavens." Su Yin took a deep breath. What realm was the most powerful being in? After all, Burial Ground Cave was created by him to cultivate Ingjia, who was equivalent to the master of all beings. He enjoyed the supreme position and had a terrifying aura. Senior Sister Grand Supreme, do you know about the human world? Su Yin asked again. Taishan's big eyes widened. She looked at Su Yin strangely again, which made Su Yin a little scared. There was no other way. The little girl's eyes were too penetrating. She tilted her head and said, "My junior brother is a little monster. He doesn't know anything. How can he be more stupid than me? How did you get into Burial Ground Cave and even become the 33rd generation disciple?" Su Yin smiled bitterly. "Can I say I came from the future?" "Junior brother, you don't even know about the War of Human Immortals?" Taishang put her small hands behind her back. She had a slender figure and said in an old voice, "But you'd better not mention anything about the human world. It's a taboo and a tragic history. It left too many old people with too much pain." Just as Su Yin had guessed, the human realm had existed before the Burial Ground era, but the human realm was under the jurisdiction of the celestial realm. Su Yin's eyes widened. What kind of world was the immortal world? What kind of universe was it? His worldview was turned upside down. There was not only the burial ground, but also a more terrifying world. The human world was under the jurisdiction of the immortal world and was restrained. This news shocked Su Yin so much that he was speechless. At the same time, Su Yin thought of the Xian people. His eyes were cold. What did the Xian people have to do with the immortal world? "As far as I know," Grand Supreme whispered, "the war between the human world and the immortal world was caused by a coffin that fell into the human world. The human world was almost destroyed." Grand Supreme raised his chin and said proudly, "Master defied the heavens and came out. He stopped the disaster from spreading from the immortal world and created the burial cave. He changed the name of this world to the burial ground and completely broke with the immortal world. From then on, the burial ground was not restrained by the immortal world. This is all thanks to Master. He created the 33 layers of heaven to stop the army of the immortal world from coming to the human world. But for a long time, the burial ground and the immortal world often fought. Some of the scary senior brothers and sisters who guarded the 33 layers of heaven died in battle. Grand Supreme's big eyes were red. He didn't know those scary senior brothers and sisters, but they died defending the sovereignty of the burial ground. They were the guardians of billions of creatures in the world. They were great heroes. They would rather die in battle than admit defeat or surrender. They were unyielding and were respected by all creatures in the world. Su Yan suddenly had goosebumps. Was the immortal world the initiator of the dark disaster? They invaded this world to take away the treasure that fell into the human world? Was the coffin in the Snow Mountain Dragon coffin the most powerful treasure that fell into the human world? It was too strange. A coffin that went through one great era after another. What complicated factors were involved in it? What did the coffin represent? What's the coffin? Su Yan asked. Grand Supreme didn't know this at all. It was a top secret of the burial ground. She had never seen it or even a coffin. She then said fiercely, "Who knows? Maybe it's a lie made up by the celestial realm to deliberately find an excuse to occupy the human world." Although the human world was under the jurisdiction of the celestial realm, it was impossible for the celestial realm to dominate the human world. Junior brother, when you become strong in the future, you must avenge the burial cave. Beat up the geniuses of the immortal world and let them know the power of the burial cave. It's best if you can be crowned king in the battlefield of the immortal world. At this time, Grand Supreme snorted again. The burial ground and the immortal world were like fire and water. Although the big battle had stopped, the small battles had continued. However, the burial cave had lost more than they won. They were all angry. Yes, I will. Su Yan nodded seriously. Was he the only disciple of the burial cave who survived? He felt a little sad. Looking at the lovely and happy Grand Supreme, he sighed in his heart. Buzz! At this moment, Grand Supreme took Su Yan to the depths of the burial cave. There were many caves here, and the rules of the Supreme Great Way flowed. It was sacred and peaceful. There were also special thoughts all over the world that cleansed people's souls. Su Yan's Taoist heart gradually stabilized. His body also emitted a holy light. They were climbing a Great Way mountain. The mountain was magnificent and went straight to the sky. With every step, the Great Way of heaven and earth fell down and pressed on Su Yan's body. It was as if it was interrogating his Great Way. Gradually, Su Yan forgot about time. His body and mind were completely immersed in the ocean of Great Way. He seemed to have turned into a seed that absorbed the ocean of Great Way. With every step he took, he would gain a lot. In a state where his body was like the universe, Su Yan was like the carrier of the universe's Great Way. Yin and Yang coexisted, evolving all things in the universe and recreating the world. After an unknown period of time, Su Yan's entire body looked particularly tall and imposing. It was as if he had become a Great Way. His whole body was shining with auspicious light. His pores were also gushing with the auspicious aura of the Great Way. It was as if he had turned into a saint. Boom! The Great Way mountain shone and flashed densely packed sacred characters. They were all formed by the order of the Great Way. Billions of flowing strands were like special metal characters. They fell down endlessly and covered Su Yan's flesh shell. In an instant, Su Yan felt that his physical body had been destroyed. It turned into fragments of the Great Way and danced with the runes in the sky. Su Yan felt that he had been crippled and turned into a broken dragon. His entire body was covered in scars. It was a tragic sight. It was the embodiment of Tao transformation. Taishan's expression changed greatly. His palms and fingers shone as he wanted to shake Su Yan down. At this time, an old man in Taoist robes came from the end of the world. He was an old saint with a terrifying aura. He waved his hand and suppressed Taishan. Everyone below the saint level was like an ant. Even the powerful Taishan was suppressed. The old saint's eyes were like two golden lamps as he stared at Su Yan. He wanted to see through him. Taishan bowed and said, "What's wrong with Junior Brother? He's about to Tao transformation. Grandfather, please save him." The old saint shook his head slightly. His words were like a great bell exploding between heaven and earth. He cultivates three peerless scriptures, the extreme yin and the extreme yang. I've never seen the other scripture before. Although the three scriptures are powerful and have laid down a shocking, immortal foundation for him, they're not the same system. The deeper he cultivates, the easier it is for problems to occur in the future. Taishang pleaded, hoping that the old saint would give Su Yin some pointers as soon as possible. This was the Great Heavenly Path Mountain. It was one of the most powerful treasure troves in the burial cave. It was also the most shocking test on the path of immortality. If Su Yin encountered any problems while breaking through, it was very likely that he would doubt transformation. If the three scriptures can't be merged, his future achievements are destined to be limited. The old saint saw through Su Yan's problem. He was like a broken dragon and couldn't respond to him. However, he felt that Su Yan's cultivation wasn't weak and that he had a great chance of breaking through. Su Yan indeed looked very dangerous. Under the torture of the strongest great Tao of the heavens, he was disintegrating. It was as if the universe was being torn apart and couldn't be merged. His body was in a miserable state, and his qi and blood were declining. He was in imminent danger. Boom! Suddenly, Su Yan's broken body shone. The beginning scripture was operating. Under the stimulation of the Great Heavenly Path Mountain, this scripture seemed very terrifying and inconceivable. Endless scripture words vibrated and arranged themselves in the broken body, reshaping the universe and recreating the universe. The old saint's heart trembled. His golden pupils blazed 1,000,000 times brighter. His cultivation was too frightening. Even a corner of the heavens was shaking. Moreover, under the gaze of his pupils, a vague figure appeared behind Su Yan. This figure seemed to have gone against the long river of time and crossed over from the future era. Step by step, it forced its way toward Su Yan. That figure was very terrifying and inconceivable. A huge cauldron hung above its head, and its feet stepped on the sea of stars in the heavens. It was filled with the strongest heavenly might of the future. The Emperor's might that originated from the future pressed down on this place. It was merely an illusory figure that didn't exist, but affected this world. Who was that person? I seem to have seen a catastrophe, a bloody, chaotic world, an ancient road of history stained with blood. Is this from the future? Is the world about to change? The old saint found it difficult to breathe. He was really in disbelief. The Heaven Ascension Great Path Mountain was very terrifying. It reflected the creator of Su Yan's scripture. At the same time, it also stimulated Su Yan's remnant body to burn with the flames of the myriad Tao, causing the two mother scriptures of the Great Yin and Great Yang to resonate. As the three ancient scriptures circulated, it was as if the ancient emperors of the past were awakening from their slumber. Emperor's might filled the air. It was as if the strongest person standing at the peak of the human world was pressing down on the heavens, causing the heavens to tremble. Terrifying heavenly might was about to sputter out and sweep across the entire burial ground space-time. Without a doubt, under the illumination of the Heaven Ascension Great Path Mountain, Su Yan's comprehension of the initial sutra became even deeper. He seemed to have transformed into the ancient celestial emperors. The strongest figure that appeared behind him resonated. His remnant body blazed brilliantly, and the sound of chanting rolled like the sea. It was expounding on the myriad Tao, expounding on the strongest profound of the world, expounding on the changes of the universe and the heavens. It was expounding on the changes of the universe and the heavens. It really encompassed the world. The Great Yin and Great Yang appeared in it, representing the heavens and the earth. Su Yin pointed to the sky with one hand and the earth with the other. I, the unique and righteous. Suddenly, Su Yan's eyes opened wide, and he let out a shout. His figure seemed to have transformed into a chaotic state. He opened up the world and reenacted the Great Path. Chapter 17:21. This was the true light of the creation of heaven and earth. It was boiling and whistling, explaining the unparalleled, profound meaning of the great Tao. The chaos exploded, and a terrifying figure was born, rising up against the wind. It was like a divine fetus of the great Tao nurtured by the chaos. It had flesh and blood, human essence, and 3 souls and 7 spirits. It was really like a new life, and also like a special reincarnation. Su Yin was like a stone being reborn. His flesh and blood glowed, breathing in the essence of heaven and earth. His figure also seemed to be integrated with the universe, and there was a kind of perfect embodiment of the immortal path. It was also like a dream. The experience just now was too bizarre, as if he had experienced real life and death. In the end, Su Yin was born, standing on the peak of the Great Path Mountain, looking down on the world. Junior brother is mighty. Junior brother is mighty. Waves of pleasant and excited voices echoed in Su Yan's ears, returning from the dream to reality. Su Yan opened his eyes and looked at the excited and happy Grand Supreme. He scratched his head. What had just happened? This was the Great Path Mountain. Since the existence of the burial cave, it had been standing here. But after a long time, there were very few who could reach the peak for the first time. It could be counted with one hand. Similarly, the Great Heaven Ascension Tao Mountain was also the most powerful Tao comprehension sacred mountain in the mortal world. Its value was hard to imagine just how shocking it was. It had given rise to many proud sons of heaven, and it had also made great contributions to the Heaven Burial Grotto. Grand Supreme didn't expect Su Yin to climb up on his first adventure. This showed that his immortal path was too shocking, and there were signs of returning to the Great Path Mountain. And what was even more outrageous was that he had cultivated 3 great heavenly arts, and they could be combined and complement each other. It had to be said that Su Yan's cultivation was terrifying to an elusive level. Great Path Mountain. Su Yan's eyes scanned the mountain. It was really a Great Path Mountain, and its price was higher than the sky. For a group of people, it could play an eternal role. Junior brother, how do you feel now? Grand Supreme ran up. There was no doubt that she was also one of the people who had reached the peak of the Great Path Mountain. But she had experienced it 8 times, if not 10 times. There were only a few people who climbed to the peak on their first try like Su Yin. There's a kind of realization of climbing to the peak of the immortal path. Su Yin was silent for a moment, and then said, Senior sister, can I stand at the Great Immortal Path Mountain at any time? Yes and no. Taishang's big eyes were watery and curved into a crescent shape when she smiled. She was very happy with Su Yan's current achievements, even happier than when she ascended. She smiled and said, Let's go to the Hall of 10,000 Arts and choose a seed of the great way of heaven and earth that suits you. A seed of the great Tao of heaven and earth that suits me. Su Yin suddenly asked, Senior Sister Grand Supreme, does the Great Immortal Path Mountain have to have a seed of the Great Path Mountain? What if I don't have it? He thought of the seed in his body. It was quite incredible, and it was also highly valued by the prehistoric Big Brother. Now that Su Yin was standing at the peak of the Almighty Immortal, it was time to consider the Supreme Path. It's fine if you don't have it, but the hope of reaching the Sage Realm will be slim. Grand Supreme's hair reached her waist. She was lively and cute. Her big eyes were clear. She explained softly, The seed of the Great Path Mountain is a treasure of heaven and earth born in the universe we live in. This thing is the seed of the Great Path Mountain that has been precipitated by the energy of the Great Path over a long period of time. It contains amazing enlightenment. If it is absorbed and refined by a cultivator, then he will be very close to the universe. It is in line with the realm of body and Tao. Only by reaching this step will there be great hope of reaching the Sage Realm. After all, the Sage Realm has to withstand the test of the Great Path Mountain. If you don't integrate with the seed of the Great Path Mountain, the test will be very abnormal and excessive. The probability of death is very high. Our burial cave has no shortage of such treasures. Junior brother, you stood at the peak of the Heavenly Path Mountain the first time you climbed the mountain. Then, no matter how precious the seed of the 10,000 Dharma Palace is, you are qualified to get it. Of course, the premise is that you can get the approval of the seed of the 10,000 Dharma Palace. Grand Supreme explained a lot to Su Yin patiently. At the same time, she couldn't wait to urge Su Yin, Let's go, junior brother. There are many treasures in the 10,000 Dharma Palace. I'll take you to broaden your knowledge and broaden your horizons. Grand Supreme didn't say anything. She also wanted to feast her eyes. Every seed of the Great Path Mountain was a precious treasure of the burial ground. It was related to the future growth of a cultivator. Therefore, only those with transcendence talent were qualified to get it. After all, this thing was too difficult to get. Little Grand Supreme is coming up. The 10,000 Dharma Palace was at the peak of the Heavenly Path Mountain. Just as they approached the place, an ancient voice exploded in the chaos. Su Yan was shocked. He noticed two terrifying figures looming in the chaos. They were like war gods who created the world. They were unparalleled and had the divine might of an expert. Open the door. I'll take my junior brother to choose the seed. Grand Supreme laughed happily. The two old experts in charge of guarding the 10,000 Dharma Palace laughed heartily. They were especially fond of this eccentric little girl. One of the old men waved his sleeve, and the door of the 10,000 Dharma Palace opened. At the same time, the aura of the two experts became infinitely terrifying. They guarded the door. The 10,000 Dharma Palace could be said to be the place where the burial ground's fire seed was preserved. Everything could be lost, but the fire seed couldn't be lost. This was the origin of life in their world. It was a seed nurtured by the universe for a long time. It was enough to represent the great fortune of this world. Su Yan followed Grand Supreme in. His mood was a little complicated. Although he had only been here for a short time, he had a strong sense of belonging to this world. He gradually got used to it. He felt that he was living in prehistory and was one of them. When they arrived at the 10,000 Dharma Palace, Su Yan's eyes widened. He also gasped. It was truly like the strongest treasure vault that ran through one universe era after another. The scene inside had a visual impact. Even someone as strong as Su Yan, who had stolen the ultimate treasure medicine, was stunned at this moment. Grand Supreme stared at the scene in the 10,000 Dharma Palace with his eyes wide open. There were no less than 10,000 Tao seeds here. Each of them was like a rotating world of the great Tao. Some had a blazing aura, some had Tao, sounds like the sea, some had dragon roars, and some had a fierce aura, 10,000 Tao seeds. This was a terrifying wealth. They were also the strongest inherited fire seeds in the sky burying cave. Some fire seeds were like the beginning of the universe, dividing the yin and yang of heaven and earth. If one sensed it carefully, they would see a grand yin and yang taijutsu that covered the sun rumbling and rotating, suppressing one's soul. Some of the great Taos of heaven and earth were chaotic. They were suspended in the void and rotating. Their aura quickly became violent, like a huge chaotic ocean rumbling. Each Tao seed of heaven and earth was powerful and shocking. They emitted a strong cosmic aura and intertwined with the natural order of the great Tao, which appeared in Su Yan's eyes. Junior brother, look there. Grand Supreme pulled Su Yan's clothes and pointed to the top of the 10,000 Dharma Palace. Su Yan looked up and saw even more shocking Tao seeds one after another. They all had source chi flowing, and they all had heaven-splitting and earth-splitting light sprinkling down. The light of reincarnation appeared, and there was also innate purple chi in the sky. There were 9 Tao seeds in succession. These were the 9 most precious Tao seeds. Each Tao seed represented the pinnacle. They also had a peerless pressure that spanned billions of years. They had been nurtured for too long. Each Tao seed was worth a Saint Realm expert waiting for them to mature for a long time. All Tao seeds, innate Tao seeds, reincarnation Tao seeds, heaven's Tao seeds, universe Tao seeds, Grand Supreme said excitedly. At the same time, she did not forget to praise herself. Junior brother, I got an innate Tao seed before. There's another one here. I wonder which of the 9 strongest Tao seeds in the 10,000 Dharma Palace suits you more. How do I get it? Su Yan was a little impatient. Let go of your Tao. You can get it with your heart. Su Yan nodded. He took a deep breath. Soon his whole body glowed. He unlocked his strongest combat power. In an instant, he changed completely. He was terrifying and domineering. He was like a god of war who tore the reincarnation of the heavens apart. He was filled with endless terror. Junior brother, Grand Supreme was a little dazed and panicked. Su Yan seemed to have become another person. In his most terrifying state, There were thousands of strange phenomena around him. He seemed to be standing on the bones of the kings of the heavens. He was the only one in the world. The aura of invincibility was so strong that it was difficult to change. What did he go through? Why did he have such a terrifying will and murderous intent? Facing Su Yan, even Grand Supreme had the feeling that he was facing a group of terrifying senior brothers and sisters. This was a terrifying will that could only be born after experiencing endless bloodshed and life and death battles. Boom! At the same time, the 10,000 Dharma Palace rumbled. All the Tao seeds glowed and rotated on their own, showing their Tao and Tao. They hoped to be chosen by Su Yan. Grand Supreme was stunned. Su Yan was suitable for all the Tao seeds. The 10,000 Tao seeds rotated very quickly, emitting an extremely eager emotion. It was as if the fire of the universe was burning. Along with Su Yan's will, they transmitted a terrifying fighting spirit. They resonated with Su Yan as if they wanted to follow Su Yan to conquer the world. All things had spirits. They wanted to be chosen by the emperor to fight for the mother of the universe. Su Yan's eyes were a little wet. He felt the 10,000 kinds of spirituality. His chest rose and fell violently. All things had spirits, let alone humans. He reached out his palm, wanting to touch these Tao seeds. However, the Tao seeds in the 10,000 Dharma Palace were like a dream. They were like bubbles that filled the sky. He couldn't touch them. He couldn't catch them. Su Yan suddenly felt a little terrified. His chest rose and fell violently, and he felt suffocated. Suddenly, Su Yan looked at Grand Supreme. He felt that Grand Supreme was a little far away from him. Her laughter was also very far away from him, so far that he couldn't hear it all. Grand Supreme! Su Yan's scalp was about to explode. There was a surge of grief and anger in his body. He also rushed to Grand Supreme. He wanted to grab her wrist, but all he grabbed was air. Grand Supreme was smiling. The little girl with waist-length hair was somewhat illusory and blurry. There were tears at the corner of her eyes. She waved at Su Yan, bidding him farewell. Grand Supreme! Su Yan roared as his hair danced in the wind. He wanted to grab the Grand Supreme, pull him out of the illusory body, and take him away. Even if he couldn't change this bloody history, couldn't he protect a person? Chapter 1722. The entire 10,000 Arts Palace seemed to be extremely dim. 10,000 kinds of things were wailing. They were illusory and were about to dissipate in front of Su Yan. Tens of thousands of heaven and earth Tao seeds were vibrating and burning with the flame of inheritance. They wanted to follow the war emperor and follow him to face the great enemy. However, they began to disappear in the end. What was in front of Su Yan was just a dream. The Grand Supreme, the little girl with silver hair that reached her waist, was smiling. Small dimples appeared on her cheeks. Her smile was sweet and cute. However, tears fell from her watery eyes, drop by drop. However, every drop of tear was like a dream. It was too unreal. She was waving at Su Yan as if she was bidding farewell to her junior brother whom she had never met. Grand Supreme! Su Yan roared angrily. His hair danced, and killing intent surged in his eyes. His aura erupted and soared to the extreme. In his domain, a terrifying scene of a universe being overturned and the world collapsing appeared. Su Yan was no longer weak. He stood in the extreme domain of a grand heavenly immortal. He raised his hand and wanted to imprison the Grand Supreme's figure. Even if he could imprison a brand or leave behind a remnant soul, he could always find a way in the future. He might even be able to let her live. However, everything was blurry. It did not exist. It was all fake. It was a dream. The Grand Supreme's figure started to shatter in the blur. It was as if she had turned into a stream of light in history. She was about to disappear from the world and cease to exist. Ah! Su Yan roared at the sky. He released his grief and indignation. His body burned fiercely and was filled with the terrifying aura of heaven burial. 3 layers of shocking power surged out. This was his complete state. He was powerful and shocking. He wanted to strike down the supreme experts in the sky and fight with the sky collapsing. Come back, senior apprentice sister. Come back quickly. His chest burned, and the chi and blood in his body swelled. His eyes were blood red, and the tragic scene of the sky collapsing and the earth collapsing sputtered out. The Grand Supreme disappeared just like that? Even if she left something behind, even if it was a piece of bone, she would not be without a token, position, or tomb. Although Su Yin had only known her for an extremely short period of time, Su Yin had treated her as a friend. He had also treated Heaven Burial Cave as his home. However, everything was gone. It was all a dream. Su Yin rushed out. The world was changing. No matter how loudly Su Yin roared, no matter how powerful the aura he released was, he was unable to touch the world in front of him. It was as if they were separated by a universe, as if they were separated by thousands of eras, as if they were separated by millions and millions of years. Su Yin's consciousness was a little blurry. His blood-red eyes looked at the world that was gradually becoming distant, and the world that was gradually becoming blurry. Heaven and earth collapsed. This was the apocalypse of the universe. The universe seemed to be weeping and bleeding. The gods withered, the saints perished, and the golden age collapsed. Boundless darkness covered the universe, collapsing the heaven-burying cave and destroying all matter. Even the saints in the sky were withering. Sigh. Su Yin heard a sigh. This was a sigh of despair. The entire burial ground was about to collapse. What else could stop this catastrophe? Bloody light surged in outer space. Terrifying giants withered one after another. Before they died, they wanted to erupt with their remaining life force to escort a batch of young seeds away. However, they could not do it. They could not do it. All sorts of terrifying scenes appeared in Su Yan's eyes. The stars in the sky were shattered, and the great Tao of the universe was destroyed. Boundless darkness covered the sky and the sun. Boundless bloody light flowed in reverse and dyed the entire burial ground red. All living beings wept and wailed in despair. There was even a place where immortal might was vast and mighty. It was like the projection of another universe. It pressed down and seemed to have collapsed the 33 levels of heaven. The catastrophe lasted for a long time. No one knew how much time had passed. At the end, other than some broken scenes in Heaven Burial Cave, the entire burial ground was silent. Blood flowed, mountains of corpses and seas of blood. It was a tragic sight. The great battle in outer space was still going on. No one knew how much time had passed. Sometimes it was pitch black like ink. Other times it was divine and overflowing. It was as if two huge universe planes were pressing down. They wanted to overturn the entire burial ground and destroy this space-time completely. Rumble. Su Yin saw huge hands pressing down one after another. It was terrifying and inconceivable. It was unknown how many thousands of miles long it was. No power could stop or match it. The great Tao of the universe was shattering in the process. When they attacked, they fought and suppressed each other. It shattered the boundless world. The destructive power was unimaginable. In the end, the battle spread to Heaven Burial Cave. Heaven Burial Cave's defensive power was extremely terrifying. However, it could not withstand the crushing power of these huge hands. Huge cracks appeared one after another. The entire Heaven Burial Cave was about to collapse. Countless treasured lands were destroyed and exploded. Their essence chi was completely drained. There were also some terrifying treasured lands that were grabbed by the huge hands and taken away from Heaven Burial Cave. There was no power that could stop them. When Heaven Burial Cave announced its complete collapse, Su Yin felt that he was going to die. He was going to be destroyed in this struggle for hegemony. In fact, at this moment, Su Yan's mind power was a little blurry. It was as if he was in a coma. Only a little of his will float outside. He watched the great world wither, watched the golden age collapse, and watched billions of lives bleed in the sky. The terrifying aura filled Heaven Burial Cave and affected Su Yin. He felt that his memory was being cut off. It disappeared completely and no longer existed. "I'm going to die." He made such a sound. He felt that he was in a nine-colored world. It was as if he was a stone embryo of heaven and earth that was sleeping one life after another. He was buried at the peak of the 33 levels of heaven and was going to be destroyed along with Heaven Burial Cave. Heaven Burial Earth burial, reincarnation burial. Suddenly, Su Yin heard waves of ancient voices. They exploded in the past, present, and future. They echoed in the bloody burial ground. He saw a particularly majestic figure appear. It filled the entire burial ground. It waved an ancient hand. The burial ground space-time completely disappeared as if it had never appeared. Kill! The terrifying, murderous sound was released. It penetrated the long river of time and echoed between heaven and earth. Even billions of years could not erase it. Su Yin could not see anything clearly. The battle was too shocking. It destroyed heaven and earth. There were glaring lights everywhere. They were so piercing that his eyes were about to bleed. In the end, he fainted. He did not know how much time had passed before he woke up. The scene that greeted his eyes was a bloody world. It was a tragic purgatory in the human world. He could not see any life or plants. The aura of death surged, and the light of destruction filled the air. "Who am I?" Su Yin roared. He had forgotten everything. He did not know who he was. However, the scene of death and destruction reflected in his eyes made him inconsolable. He felt that he had lost the most important thing to him. He roared continuously. He wanted answers. He was not willing to forget. He even wanted to go out and leave this place. He wanted to take a look at the outside world and look for familiar people. If he was the only living being in the world, one could imagine how sad it would be. No matter how he called out and roared, the world was still lifeless. He was even separated from the lifeless burial ground space-time by a long road. It was an unimaginable space-time that was difficult to reach and difficult to cross. It was as if the burial ground no longer existed in Burial Cave. Burial Heaven, Burial Earth, Burial Reincarnation. 3 terrifying radiances were branded on Burial Cave, guarding a person's life. Gradually, Su Yin remembered something. He was the youngest disciple of Burial Cave. He was the 33rd generation disciple of Burial Cave. He had a senior sister called the Grand Supreme. However, he could not find her. She was gone. She had disappeared. Boom! Countless years had passed, and the silence had been broken. Heaven and earth trembled violently. Layers of supreme power destroyed Burial Cave's layout. It collapsed one terrifying seal after another and tore apart the protective light that filled the sky. The entire Burial Cave shook violently. Su Yin saw a particularly imposing figure. In the lower realm, it could be said that he walked like a dragon and moved like a tiger. He pushed the universe to move. Behind him, the gate of reincarnation appeared. He was like the ruler of reincarnation who ruled all living beings in the universe. His figure was blurry and huge, carrying endless pressure. Moreover, his eyes opened. Heaven and earth trembled. A huge rift valley was formed in Burial Cave. In his terrifying eyes, the withering of the great world and the collapse of the human Tao appeared. Thousands of broken universe shadows appeared. Just how powerful was this giant? He seemed to have followed the long river of time and entered Burial Cave. He looked down at Su Yin from high above. "Who are you?" Su Yin asked. His eyes were wide open. He felt that this person had a terrifying killing intent that threatened his life. The Supreme Being who was looking down at Burial Cave with his huge eyes stared coldly at Su Yin. Originally, he wanted to raise his hand and destroy Su Yin. However, he suddenly frowned as he realized that this weak little being was not ordinary. "Kneel, kowtow, and acknowledge me as your master." He opened his mouth. His words were grand and shook the long river of time. There were also supreme laws that appeared, enough to collapse a universe dimension. Words came one after another like a grand, unrivaled, immortal scripture. They rolled down and were about to imprint themselves in Su Yan's sea of consciousness and control his fate. "I am the 33rd generation disciple of Burial Cave." Su Yan opened his mouth and replied, "Ha ha!" The terrifying creature laughed loudly. Thousands of laws appeared and blasted down, shaking open the 33rd layer of heaven. Endless destruction and cruelty crushed Su Yin. Su Yin felt that he had died and that his body and soul had been destroyed. Su Yin was a bit confused. His eyes were a bit gloomy, as if he had really submitted. However, a blurry little girl appeared in front of him. Her beautiful hair reached her waist. She smiled happily at Su Yin with tears at the corners of her eyes. "I will not submit to you." Su Yin closed his eyes and said indifferently, "You can destroy heaven and earth. You can control the life and death of all living things. However, if you want to enslave my soul, you can't do it." Ant, the supreme existence, was callous to the extreme. He directly raised his large hand and directly smashed him to death like he was swatting a fly. This was because he vaguely grasped that Su Yan's future wasn't simple. It was somewhat chaotic, somewhat terrifying, and carried with it a sea of blood. It foretold how terrifying and extraordinary his future would be. He had to be killed in advance to prevent future variables from occurring. Rumble. In an instant, a figure appeared at the end of another space-time path. He crossed thousands of eras to come here. The long river of time was illusory as he walked step by step towards Su Yin. Every step he took brought with it the rumbling sound of the long river of time. Billions of layers swept out, and with a rumble, he immediately isolated the supreme existence's large hand that struck down. He also seemed to be standing in the sea of stars. Behind him, the great world rose and fell, and the might of a celestial emperor was vast and mighty. "Who is it?" The supreme existence was shocked. He stared at the figure that suddenly attacked over and shouted, "You even dare to block my path? Why make things difficult for a child?" The one who came was relatively calm. He crossed the long river of time and stood opposite the supreme existence. He calmly said, "I'll protect this child. You can leave now. There's more at night." Chapter 17:23. The nine-colored immortal mountain glowed and breathed in the innate essence, flowing with exuberant vitality. It was also like a nine-colored graveyard where a life form existed. This was Su Yin from millions and millions of years ago. He looked at the supreme figure that was coming to protect him. He felt a sense of familiarity as if he had met someone on his side. He was especially excited. Su Yin couldn't see through this supreme figure's appearance. He stood tall in the sea of stars, his emperor's might pervading the air. Although his aura was relatively calm, it still pervaded the air, suppressing the past, present, and future. For a moment, he appeared very grand and tall, indomitable. Even the long river of time he passed through began to tremble. It was as if the long river of time was about to change its course. One could imagine just how powerful he was in this domain. Even heaven and earth couldn't bear the weight of an expert at this level. He could even rewrite the order of the universe. He was supreme. Ha ha. On the other side, the Emperor's terrifying figure that had collapsed the protective light of heaven-burying cave looked up to the sky and laughed. One had to admit that he was very terrifying. His continuous laughter shattered the great stars in the sky. A heaven-defying scene of history collapsing was about to take place. This supreme expert was also somewhat indistinct and couldn't be seen clearly. He was surrounded by a myriad of strange phenomena. The supreme order of laws rumbled down in unison. His divine might filled the boundless sea of stars. In particular, a giant reincarnation gate appeared behind him. How many years has it been? How many eras have passed? Who dares to talk to me with such a tone? The reincarnation emperor laughed loudly. His grand words shook heaven-burying cave. His pair of eyes were also enormous like the sea of reincarnation. They could devour all life in the universe and create the cycle of life and death. Su Yin glanced over. His body and mind were torn apart. Moreover, his entire being sank into the eyes. He saw countless broken universes collapsing in his eyes. He seemed to have slaughtered one great universe after another. The scene emitted from his eyes alone was already world-shocking. Su Yan's soul was trembling and felt like it was about to explode and shatter. This was a supreme divine might. It couldn't be spied upon, observed, or blasphemed. One could only prostrate themselves in worship. Otherwise, one's body and Tao would vanish. Buzz. The figure standing in the starry sea in the heavens sprinkled down wisps of clear light, cutting off the connection between Su Yin and the Samsara Emperor. Su Yin heaved a sigh of relief. He felt as if he had forgotten something, and this made him turn pale with fright. This level of existence was truly difficult to describe. Their cultivation had already reached a level that ordinary people could only look up to. I don't care who you are, where you're from, or who's behind you. In any case, I'm protecting this child. His gaze landed on the life forms in the nine-colored graveyard. The penetrative power of his eyes was too strong. It was as if he could see Su Yan's past and see a corner of his future. However, the scenes that originated from the future possessed a terrifying influence. It was difficult for him to completely see through them. Not only did this involve the order of the universe, but it also involved various complicated factors. Under his gaze, the future was filled with endless turmoil. It swept over along the long river of time, and it was simply about to crush the long river of time. If it were any other expert, even if there were billions of gods and devils, they would die in an instant. However, the man standing in the heavens was powerful enough. He wasn't affected at all. From beginning to end, he looked down on the future with a supreme attitude. Even if he couldn't see it, he wouldn't force it. He knew very well that once his power was involved with Su Yan's future, it would trigger a series of unchangeable variables. Similarly, he would also bear great karma. He caught something. He saw a coffin floating in the future. It was as if it was floating in the blood-stained space-time of the myriad worlds. This caused him to fall into deep thought. He also had a similar coffin in his hands. He saw another one that was deeply involved with this child. Were these special items of the same series? If they were really of the same series, this was extremely shocking. It involved some very terrifying things. Even someone as powerful as the man in the heavens felt that there was a big problem. He didn't know how these coffins were born. Were they refined by experts? Or were they born and nurtured by the heavens? What was the source? Were there even other coffins? The more he thought about it, the more he felt that there were too many variables. It was full of the unknown and great fear. He couldn't help but sigh. If one was strong enough, they would see a different world. He recalled his experience when he was young. Although he had experienced endless bloodshed, he wasn't troubled by fog. As for this series of coffins, the factors involved were too complicated. Boom! A terrifying explosion shook the long river of the universe. It exploded in the broken world of the burial ground. It almost caused a shocking scene of the universe collapsing. What kind of invincible creature was this? It was terrifying and inconceivable. It also released boundless flames of anger. What kind of existence was he? Why did he need someone behind him? The words of the figure standing in the sea of stars completely enraged the reincarnation emperor. Wave after wave of destructive aura of the laws came whistling, drowning the entire burial cave. Everything was going to be destroyed along with it. Obviously, the reincarnation emperor had made his move. In a short period of time, this space-time turned into a big black hole. Nothing existed anymore. Only the terrifying figure standing in the burial cave, protecting Su Yin, was left. He calmly looked at the falling laws of order. He didn't move or make a move, but the surrounding scene welcomed a great change. The golden age of the heavens opened. It was as if the real universe had appeared here. It emitted an extremely grand aura. Even the Daozu in the sky wanted to kneel here and crawl while trembling. What kind of power was this? It couldn't be changed, it couldn't be destroyed. No matter how terrifying the murderous aura fell from the sky, it couldn't affect his Tao. This person possessed an invincible and eternal emperor's might. It pervaded the entire burial cave. Who are you? The reincarnation emperor shouted coldly. His figure gradually blazed. One could vaguely see his full appearance. His figure was tall and sturdy, so tall and sturdy that it could support the sea of stars in the universe. His whole body was covered in golden scales and emitted boundless vitality essence. His hair was also golden and danced like a great waterfall. Every strand of hair could cut apart the great stars in the universe and tear apart heaven and earth. Of course, the most special thing about him was that there was a golden vertical eye between his eyebrows. It was in a sealed state. He was born with 3 eyes and towering horns. This Overlord Emperor, who could swallow the world, shouted at the figure who opened up the sea of stars in the heavens. I don't want to repeat my words a 3rd time. The figure standing in the heavens was still calm. Ha! The terrifying Emperor roared. His blazing figure burned. It was terrifying. Behind him, a majestic universe plane appeared. It was going to press down and dominate everything. You really aren't afraid of being implicated in great karma. There was nothing more to say. Since he had already spoken, he directly erupted. With a rumble, he attacked horizontally. In fact, the two seemed very close, but they were actually very far apart. Separated by the river of time, it also seemed like they were separated by an eternity of time and space. But in just an instant, the terrifying Emperor rushed over. He brandished his fist and smashed towards the burial cave. The figure in the various heavens was no longer silent. However, when he truly erupted with power, it was simply too terrifying. The various heavens he opened were expanding, as if they could suppress the entire space-time of the burial ground, transforming into a boundless great world. The eyes of the figure in the middle also widened. It was obvious that he was recovering. The aura of the ancient celestial emperor spread out. It was billions of times more majestic. It was as if the first emperor of the world was awakening. Boom! He was throwing a punch. This was the true power of the ancient celestial emperor. The emperor's fist could pierce through the past, present, and future, and the power of 10,000 realms appeared behind it. Then, it became eternal and indestructible, shattering the magical laws of energy as it slammed into the reincarnation emperor's fist. Boom! An earth-shattering explosion occurred. It was like a ball of brilliant fireworks exploded in history. It was also like the prelude to the end of the heavens. Endless laws and order trembled. The great Tao of heaven and earth began to submit. Su Yan's eyes widened. He was shocked. The terrifying figure of the reincarnation monarch was sent flying in a single exchange. His entire fist exploded, and even his arm was torn to pieces. What level was this living being at? A drop of blood could destroy the heavens and earth. A piece of bone could crush the stars in the heavens. Not to mention, an arm exploded. The scene of endless blood rain falling down was heaven-defying. It dyed the burial ground red. You injured me? The reincarnation emperor was also in disbelief. So many eras had passed. Well, had he ever been injured? If this really happened, it would be a great event that would shake the world. It would cause a series of panic. He was also driven mad by the endless shame and anger. The vertical eye between his eyebrows finally opened, instantly forming a reincarnation field, and the entire sky fell into darkness. Only the reincarnation emperor was terrifying. The vertical eye between his eyebrows seemed to represent the ancient road of reincarnation. In his complete form, his body enlarged. No one knew how many tens of thousands of feet tall he was. His entire body was emitting the light of the river of time. Kill! He let out a loud roar, and the domain of reincarnation filled the entire world. It carried an immeasurable amount of divine might as it charged towards the man standing in the sky. The man frowned. He stared at the reincarnation emperor and said coldly, "This is not a place where you can do whatever you want." Rumble. The world changed. It was as if the broken burial ground had been revived. Endless pressure was born, engulfing the entire burial ground. In an instant, he changed. He was like the world's #1 emperor. His aura swallowed the river of time. His figure was also boundless. It was as if he had replaced this world. Su Yan was stunned. The person who wanted to protect him was too powerful. No matter how strong the reincarnation emperor's aura was, it seemed weak in front of the man standing in the heavens. This was not an expert on the same level. Even if his heavenly eye revealed the reincarnation great world, it was still suppressed by the man's aura. It trembled and was about to collapse completely. He screamed miserably. His vertical eye spilled blood. His body was torn into pieces. It was about to explode in the river of time and become a wave of history. What kind of person was he facing? The reincarnation emperor coughed out large mouthfuls of blood. He staggered and couldn't stand steadily. Once an expert of this level was injured, the heavens were doomed to collapse. The heavens were crying blood, transmitting all kinds of terrifying auras. He roared madly. Millions of rays of killing light shot out from his bleeding vertical eye. They all evolved into the reincarnation sword embryo. One after another, endless rays of light shot out. You still dare to come. You really aren't afraid of death. The man standing in the burial cave's eyes finally emitted a ray of killing light. Ha, you want to kill me? The injured reincarnation emperor laughed angrily. I admit that you are stronger than me, but you don't even have the emperor's mandate. Aren't you afraid that I will slaughter the universe behind you and massacre billions of lives? Some karma can't be touched. For example, the burial ground has been cleansed. At this point, the reincarnation emperor's expression was cold and cruel. Then, he looked at the last true descendant of the burial ground. Although he was only a weak creature, he couldn't be left alive. Otherwise, the burial ground era wouldn't be over. Chapter 1724. The nine-colored graveyard shook violently as if it was about to explode. All kinds of violent energy whizzed out. Although he appeared too weak and insignificant in this situation, not even comparable to a speck of dust, Su Yin still continued to roar in a low voice. His eyes had turned red. His home had been massacred, washed clean with blood. Only he was left. It was too cruel and bloody. He growled in the graveyard and made the nine-colored graveyard burn. Vaguely, a heavenly embryo appeared in the graveyard. It was overflowing with nine-colored heavenly radiance. The stone embryo seemed to have fallen into the devil's path. It was about to turn into a ferocious creature that wanted to wreak havoc in the heavens and conquer the immortal world. Ha. The reincarnation emperor laughed. Although it was more or less related to him, it was not rare for a universe to be destroyed. In his eyes, Su Yin was just a pitiful worm. Although he was a little special, he was still a pitiful worm after all. In the end, his laughter became louder and louder. His bloodstained body also became more and more majestic. At the same time, his figure also became a bit blurry, unable to be seen clearly. The light of reincarnation swirled around him, as if he was the ruler of the ultimate reincarnation. Boom! Suddenly, an inexplicable aura flowed. It was ridiculous and terrifying. The entire heavens seemed to be trembling, and the great universes seemed to be shaking with it. Worlds were about to fall. Trillions of creatures were terrified. They did not know where the killing intent came from. It affected their universe. This matter was also listed as an indescribable taboo mystery. In fact, the standard of their battle was too high. It was unimaginable. Even a small ripple in the river of time had an extremely shocking impact. They also had to bear great karma, not to mention that they were fighting here. The reincarnation emperor's aura swallowed the heavens and earth. It could be said that he was looking down on a series of terrifying existences that were qualified to stand above the river of time, because he had the emperor's mandate. The emperor's mandate. Interesting. The figure standing above the heaven-burying cave was surprised. However, he was still very calm. He looked at the reincarnation emperor and his eyes gradually deepened. He could vaguely see that behind the reincarnation emperor, there was a giant connected to the reincarnation emperor. Boom! The loud sound was even more terrifying. The heavens were about to fall, and the myriad realms were about to wither. Endless, terrifying aura pressed down, shaking the river of time. It was about to echo in the past, present, and future. The great historical stars in the sky wailed. Countless suns were extinguished. One could imagine how terrifying the aura's aura. It could really affect the past. The entire world entered a state of eternal silence because this aura was a bit frightening, enough to crush the river of eternity, crushing all resistance. To the reincarnation, to reincarnation. Reincarnation emperor. To reincarnated reincarnation emperor. To reincarnation emperor. Reincarnation, reincarnation. Infto to be to end. K. To heaven, to the massive figure, the majestic aura of life, and the unparalleled Emperor Tao laws all surged out like a dam. The process was even more shocking than the explosion of a corner of the heavens. The man above heaven-burying cave was even more astonished. This was a special power. It seemed similar to the thing in the coffin. Could it be that they were related? He had investigated the history of the burial ground and knew that the bloody catastrophe of the burial ground was deeply related to a coffin. Although he knew that the collapse of the burial ground had nothing to do with the Samsara Emperor, it was related to another force. But he found that these two powers were very interested in the mysterious series of coffins. There are no living souls under Emperor's orders. The reincarnation Emperor spoke. His voice was full of supreme majesty and matchless divine might. His entire being seemed especially great. It was as if he had created the universe and controlled the life and death of trillions of creatures. No matter how strong one was, they would all have to crawl and tremble. I'm the Emperor. Why do I need heaven and earth to seal me? The man above heaven-burying cave sneered. His words affected the great universe. He said, "You are on the wrong path." The reincarnation Emperor's aura swallowed the river of time. He stood in the distant space and looked down at him. He said coldly, "You will know the right path after I kill you. You are blocking my path. Great karma is involved. The motherland behind him will also suffer disaster. Seems like you really want to die." He walked out. He wanted to kill him. He also wanted to find out some other things through the reincarnation Emperor. Kill. The reincarnation Emperor's killing intent also surged. His blood-stained pupils shone brightly, becoming much more terrifying than the last time. Accompanied by the Supreme Emperor's might, his words became law. Millions and millions of reincarnation blade lights scattered down from his pupils. Reincarnation blade, 10 million years, heaven and earth were all shattered. An unrivaled, great divine ability was unleashed. The sky was filled with reincarnation blade radiance that slashed down, annihilating everything. Even the most powerful creatures would find it hard to endure a single strike of reincarnation. It was enough to destroy an expert's cultivation, lifespan, and even fate. Boom! Time was melted away. Order and laws were lost. The terrifying blade was intertwined with the laws of reincarnation. It revealed the power to kill billions of creatures. It also ignored all laws. It almost instantly slashed at the man who walked out. Kill! The reincarnation Emperor roared. He held the reincarnation blade lights with both hands. Although the light was only 10 feet long, it was condensed into an ultimate technique. It could destroy the universe. It could destroy 3,000 universes and destroy heaven and earth. Be careful, Su Yin shouted. He felt endless death. This reincarnation Emperor was too terrifying. The reincarnation blade lights he brandished caused a crack to appear in the universe. Only heaven knew how far it extended. It shook open the long river of time. It wanted to kill its way into the past and future to kill the enemy. This blade was truly terrifying and frightening. The entire sky was filled with the radiance of reincarnation. Even when the blade lights were urged to the extreme, a huge and blurry projection of the universe appeared behind him. It was as if reincarnation had bloomed at the end. It erupted with the divine might to kill an emperor. Boom! The man who walked out of the heaven-burying cave became clearer and clearer. It was a man in Taoist robes. His black hair fell over his shoulders. He was majestic and imposing. His eyes were deep. However, he was no longer calm. When he took a step out, it was as if he was undergoing a new life. He had completely changed. He had an indescribable fate. The heavens were rumbling. The sky was filled with a rain of space-time light. He simply crossed a great era of the universe, crossing the endless reincarnation path in an instant. The aura he released made Burial Earth's great silent ancient lands rumble. This was incomparably terrifying and tyrannical. A sea of blood appeared around him, the scene of immortal kings dying everywhere. Su Yin was stupefied. The enormous reincarnation blade radiance hacked down on his body. He didn't move, allowing the blade radiance to hack at him. He was impervious to all methods. as if he cultivated an unmatched and undefeated body. He was too powerful and tyrannical. Even the reincarnation blade, Radiance, was blasted open, about to explode. Ah! The reincarnation emperor roared. He knew that he encountered an unimaginable enemy. This was an existence comparable to the unmatched emperor race's founder. He brandished the blade, Radiance, again. An enormous passage appeared behind him, connecting to another world. Suddenly, the heavens were about to collapse, the endless cosmos shaking. It was as if the king of the universe's dimensions was crushing down. It was also accompanied by the berating voice of the great Tao. It was as if the most powerful heavenly mandate was appearing, about to judge the lower realm's most powerful expert. Millions and millions of natural laws descended. The void of the cosmos moved. Everything went crazy along with the reincarnation emperor. He didn't believe that he couldn't suppress this mysterious expert. Suddenly, the man who crossed the great river of great eras became resplendent again. He released endless primitive holy force. The reincarnation emperor's expression changed. He saw the enormous great river of time appear behind him. On this path, footsteps sounded, sound after sound. The footsteps sounded extremely distant, but there was also unmatched emperor might that rushed over. It already suppressed this world, as if millions and millions of heavenly punishments were crashing down. It made him feel a bit suffocated. There are more experts slaughtering their way over. The reincarnation emperor's expression changed. The man who towered in the heavens was powerful enough, but he wasn't the only one facing him. There were others as well. Hong Long. In the end, 9 consecutive sounds of footsteps sounded. 9 supreme figures appeared, approaching from the distance. Their auras were extremely terrifying. The 9 great emperor shadows possessed an unparalleled, shocking power. They also seemed to have walked out from the forks of the great river of time. He seemed to have rushed out from the great river of cultivation civilizations. This method was too inconceivable. Is this your incarnation? The reincarnation emperor's expression was extremely gloomy. His incarnation followed the great river of time and entered the great time and space nodes, searching for something in the burial ground era. Every figure was extremely terrifying. 9 figures stepped out in succession, as if they represented different cultivation realms. The 9 figures returned to the man's body, evolving into the most terrifying ancient celestial emperors, shocking the past and dazzling the present. Finally, from this moment on, his complete body appeared. The sky full of reincarnation blade radiance exploded. Even the passage that appeared behind him was trembling. The reincarnation emperor trembled. His body cracked again, unable to bear the terrifying aura of this person. His body was on the verge of collapse. The vertical eye between his eyebrows was also distorted. He saw tens of thousands of supreme rules of the great Tao drill out from this person's body, rebuilding the heavens and suppressing all at once. I am the Emperor's will. The reincarnation emperor whispered. Reincarnation emperor said softly, becoming a bit anxious. He wanted to steal the endless power of the connected world to contend against this terrifying person. But it was useless. Everything was suppressed. The sea of stars he created gushed out the light of 10,000 realms. They merged together and evolved into a universe millstone. It was going to seal the heavens and rebuild the universe. Puff! The reincarnation emperor was bleeding all over. He was being crushed, and his true body was being destroyed. Dong, dong, dong. The man waved his fists, one punch after another. Every punch was wrapped in invincible power, causing bloody holes to appear on the reincarnation emperor's body. No matter how he struggled and resisted, he couldn't stop his power at all. Bastard. In the end, he roared, "Who are you? Leave your name, and I'll kill you." His blood-stained flesh burned. A special mark flashed between his eyebrows. It was as if the condensed universe of the immortal world was imprinted on it. The moment it spun, it was extremely terrifying and inconceivable. The projection of the immortal world surged, supporting tens of thousands of Tao and forcibly opening a path. He fled toward the world behind him. If he didn't leave now, he would die here. My name is Dao Ling. Unfortunately, you won't have a chance. When he attacked, that kind of unparalleled emperor's might made the entire world tremble. The ancient celestial emperors seemed to have crossed the heavens and 10,000 realms. Step by step, the passage behind the reincarnation emperor trembled. His body's terrifying power surged, even the great river of time rumbling, even the boundless great cosmos rushing into the heavens, attacking as well. At this moment, he pushed the 10,000 realms forward. The entire passage collapsed. Even the universe behind him trembled with it. As for the reincarnation emperor, he exploded. Drifting blood rained down and poured down. It dyed the 10,000 realms red. It was a horrifying scene. It could be called the end of the universe. I've been waiting for a long time. The domineering appearance of the Tao, Celestial Emperor, should be a monthly vote. Chapter 1725. The heavens were dyed in blood. This was an indescribably terrifying event. The heavens wept as the heavens were dyed red. There was also a boundless sea of blood that engulfed the heavens. The heavens were so vast. There were not only cultivation planes like the undying heavenly domain and the Xianhuang universe, but there were also other planes. Of course, the most terrifying one was the immortal world, which was known as the king of dimensions in the universe. They were above the heavens, looking down on the myriad of worlds. Su Yan was stunned. Then, he began to tremble. It was too terrifying. Just what level was this expert at? The scene of his death was enough to shock the world and make ghosts and deities weep. It was as if the cry of the most powerful expert was transmitted from the myriad realms. A rain of blood covered the sky, crushing the long river of time, collapsing the great stars that filled the sky. The tragic aura was vast and mighty. The entire heavens were trembling. Of course, all of this was because of the invincible combat power of the Tao Celestial Emperor. With supreme majesty, he pushed the heavens and destroyed the earth. You actually killed me once. All of a sudden, the heavens rumbled and the myriad realms trembled violently. The sound of an explosion in the outer world shook the heavens and the earth. It was accompanied by the appearance and eruption of the elusive aura of birth charts, causing the world to turn dark and the blood-stained heavens to blaze and surge. He's alive again? In the graveyard, a pair of eyes glared angrily. The enemy was resurrected once again. He had already been blown apart before, but he reconstructed his body. Moreover, there was a terrifying aura that swept through the blood-stained heavens. Moreover, there was a huge blood-stained figure that appeared. What kind of method was this? The flesh shell was destroyed by an invincible giant, but he could still reconstruct his body and reconstruct the Emperor's fate. What's the world behind him? It seems to be because of a special life chart. The creatures in the graveyard whispered. After peeking at the reconstructed figure of the reincarnation emperor, it was connected to a huge universe plane. It was so majestic that it seemed to be able to crush the entire heavens. The mysterious universe flowed with endless celestial light. It was as if the life source of the universe had been opened. It gushed out and provided strong support for the reincarnation emperor. Roar! The reincarnation emperor roared. The speed of reconstruction was too fast. The originally blurry figure quickly turned into a solid body. He actually lived another life. Standing in a world of reincarnation, he was about to merge with the universe behind him. Kill! The invincible heavenly emperor, tyrannical Rand, made his move and unleashed an imperial fist. His fist imprint reversed the flow of time and created a boundless storm in the myriad realms. He was too terrifying. His emperor fist was unmatched, surging with the light of the heavens. He immediately smashed over, wishing to blast apart the reincarnation emperor a second time. I'll come and find you. The Samsara emperor didn't dare to continue the fight. He rapidly retreated. For someone as powerful as him, if he retreated in this period of time, he could cross endless time and space. This speed was unimaginable to the people of the world. He could follow the power of time and step into the future. After a short leap, the Samsara Emperor was getting closer and closer to the world behind. But at the next moment, the fist imprint was like a rainbow as it struck out, blasting everything apart. It opened up a gigantic black hole in the universe as an invincible punch struck out. The reincarnation Emperor roared. His waterfall-like hair danced about chaotically. The vertical eye between his brows widened angrily. In a short period of time, he activated a series of world-shaking, great divine abilities, opening up his most powerful life source to defend himself. But it was useless. He was blasted through once again. It was hard to imagine what kind of enemy he had encountered. A huge hole appeared in his flesh shell. The invincible Imperial Fist shattered his entire body and killed him for the second time. He can still be revived. Su Yin realized the seriousness of the situation. The Samsara Emperor seemed to have an immortal body. Even if he was continuously blasted apart, he could still reconstruct his body again and again. Without a doubt, he would be revived again. Without a word, he fled to the world behind him. You lunatic, the Samsara Emperor was being chased all the way. The scene along the way was quite tragic. His body was constantly being blasted apart. In fact, as powerful as he was, even if his body and soul were destroyed, he could still reconstruct them in a short period of time. Now, he was being chased and blasted apart again and again. No matter how terrifying his life force was, he couldn't reconstruct his body again and again. But what was worse was that the experts chasing him were following the path behind him and attacking the world behind him. The cruel reality was true. The Samsara Emperor wasn't massacring the world behind the Tao Celestial Emperor. Instead, the Tao Celestial Emperor was attacking the universe behind him. Gradually, Su Yan's spiritual will became blurry. The scenes of the battle he saw were getting farther and farther away. In fact, if the battle hadn't been so intense, he wouldn't have been able to catch a glimpse of it. Then how far was the world that the Samsara Emperor was escaping to from the heaven-burying cave? At the final moment, he vaguely saw the Tao Celestial Emperor follow the Samsara Emperor's escape path and attack the great world behind him. This was too cruel. He killed his way to the Samsara Emperor's lair. No matter how many times he could reconstruct himself, he would kill him. Su Yin was worried. He didn't know what would happen to the Tao Celestial Emperor. He hoped that the invincible Tao Celestial Emperor could return safely. In fact, at the distant end of the world, in that magnificent world, at a certain point in time, a shocking event happened. A terrifying existence attacked the immortal world. What was invincible power? What was unparalleled power? No matter how powerful this world was. Regardless of how terrifying their cultivation level was, in that period of history, countless experts knelt on the ground, an innumerable number of black masses. They were trembling and couldn't even raise their heads. They were completely frightened. Since the ancient times, who dared to attack the immortal world? Since the ancient times, who dared to attack the immortal world while destroying the monarch's fate experts? Once they did appear, they would join hands to kill them. This world's power was inviolable. It had existed since the ancient times and was strong since the ancient times. It had to be said that it caused a terrifying period of chaos. Some monarch races that looked down on the world awakened. Some terrifying life-forbidden zones were awakened. All kinds of killing weapons were awakened. They were used one after another. It was enough to massacre a prosperous universe. But the Tao Celestial Emperor's power was unrivaled. He killed his way through, invincible and undefeatable. The immortal world was in chaos because of this. Even the old monsters lost control. Would this kind of person never appear again? How could he defy the heavens and come out from the lower world again? In fact, even if the reincarnation emperor was still alive, he would be punished by their world. Since the ancient times, no expert could travel unimpeded in the immortal world. Even the most powerful existences, the giants who had been floating in the river of time, needed guidance to ascend to the immortal world. But the Tao Celestial Emperor directly followed the path behind him and killed his way up. In the process, he also withstood the endless power of the immortal world's will. He also succeeded. This was a great humiliation for the immortal world. The reincarnation emperor also caused a great disaster. Time flew by as the years changed. Burying Heaven Cave returned to silence. The nine-colored graveyard at the top of the 33 levels of heaven also gradually returned to peace. Su Yin, who was groggy, looked at the sky. Various cracks of time and space densely covered the sky and fell into an endless sleep. No matter how time passed, the mountains and the earth changed their paths. The world's environment changed greatly, but Burying Heaven Cave remained the same. The sleeping creatures in the nine-colored graveyard sometimes woke up and sometimes fell asleep. No one knew how many years had passed. After a long time, the sleeping creatures in the nine-colored graveyard forgot everything. Time was too old. It could change everything. Roar! On this day, a loud roar resounded in Burying Heaven Cave. It echoed in the 33 levels of heaven, as if it resounded in the past, present, and future. The entire Burying Heaven Cave suddenly blazed. It was as if it was buried in the long river of time. Endless years of undying obsession revived and burned fiercely. It was as if it had found a place to return to. Vaguely, Burying Heaven Cave, which was stained with dried blood and riddled with holes, shone brightly. Time seemed to have returned to prehistory, to the prosperous era of Burying Heaven Cave. The ancient heroic spirits were reviving. The extinguished fighting spirit was burning again. During this process, it was accompanied by layers of terrifying pressure. It swept along the long river of time and descended on this world. It resonated with Su Yin, Burying Heaven Cave, the 33rd generation of disciples. He was still alive and was the only successor. As long as he was still alive, Burying Heaven Cave's lineage would not be extinct. It was the most powerful cave in the universe and the most terrifying place of fortune. As long as he was still alive, the era of Burying Heaven Cave would not end. They still had an inheritance flame seed. Now he had returned. He stood at the peak of the 33 levels of heaven and roared at the sky. His scattered black hair danced in the wind, and his chest rose and fell violently. His eyes were filled with tears as he looked at the endless remnant thoughts of the ancient heroic spirits. He could vaguely see a black-clothed man. He was tall and sturdy, and a true dragon was coiled around his body. He smiled at Su Yin. He also saw a little girl with beautiful hair that reached her waist. Her large eyes were curved into crescents. She waved at Su Yin as if she was saying goodbye. Endless figures, these were their remnant thoughts. They had not been extinguished even now. They echoed in Burying Heaven Cave, transmitting a low roar that originated from the past. It continuously exploded in the 33 levels of heaven. They surrounded and protected Su Yin, making him seem like he was the most supreme person in the world. Su Yin roared in response. Who I am is no longer important. What was important was that he was Heaven Burial Cave's last disciple. He lived in this world, his true fate protected by Tao, Celestial Emperor. He experienced endless calamities and endured until now, recovering a precious memory. His hair danced about chaotically, as if he had gone mad. Under the Great Purge, it was too difficult for the sole, remaining personal disciple to survive. He was like an archaic creature that had slumbered for millions and millions of years, breaking out of the earth. His aura surged, his pupils erupting with heaven overflowing chaotic light. They all turned into thick chaotic lightning as he gazed into the heavens, gazing at the remaining great space-time crack. This was Su Yan's spiritual fighting spirit. The heavenly eye of primal chaos was like a sea of primal chaos, also carrying Heaven Burial Cave's endless flames of hope. It surged and burned, rushing into the heavens, illuminating the damaged ancient space-time path, about to connect to the immortal realm. What kind of light is this? It is transmitted up from the lower realm, shining on the immortal gate. There is killing intent. No, it's that sealed ancient land. What happened? An ancient voice appeared at the end of the great crack. There was also a hint of alarm within. They were all relatively ancient, guarding this place, monitoring the world, worried that something similar would happen. It was because in the distant era, invincible giants had once attacked the immortal realm. However, after that, there were also terrifying experts who killed their way up. They were all terrifying and inconceivable, causing havoc in the immortal realm. That was a taboo period of history that couldn't be described with words. It really is. There were even people who cried out in a low voice. They grabbed an enormous staff, laying horizontally at the end of the space-time crack, about to crush it and sweep through the immortal realm. An enormous immortal iron staff rose from Su Yan's back. The immortal iron staffs, that had been sealed at his side for endless years, was revived, gushing with endless flames of battle. It wanted to follow Su Yan and continue the prehistoric battle. Charge up! The immortal iron staffs stirred up Su Yan's battle blood that had been silent for decades. He wanted to seize the staff and slaughter his way into the immortal realm.